Find long-running Webi reports in your SAP BusinessObjects environment. You may have run into an issue where users report the system is slow. The first thing you want to know is what is running. 360 Live, one of the newest solutions in the 360 suite, will show you exactly what Webi reports are running, whether they're scheduled, on demand, ad hoc, saved. You will know what is running, who is running them, and how long they've been running. You can even set up alerts to let you know Webi reports have been running for more than 20 minutes or whatever time frame you specify. So let's take a look. First, I'm going to log into 360. Go to Monitoring and Watchers. Create a new watcher. Okay, give it a title. Expand Webi metrics. Select active Webi sessions. Click Next. I'm going to leave the defaults for these options. Okay, so here's my alert. Anytime a report is running longer than 20 minutes, I'm going to receive an email alert. So here's my warning. It's going to be an email. Put in my email address. You could have multiple addresses as well. And I can have these parameterized settings. So it's going to give me the metric name, the service, and the watcher name. I'll click Add and Add Alert and Next, and I'll keep the default for Log and click Add. So here's my watcher, long-running Webi reports. It's running anytime a report is running longer than 20 minutes. I'm going to receive an email, but I can also open it and take a look at what's currently running. So when I open this, it's going to show me all the reports that are running. I can see the user that's running them, the document name. If it's an ad hoc, it'll say ad hoc, what server is running the process, and how long the report's been running. Please let us know if you're interested in a trial. Thank you. Hopefully you're here.
More quickly. Our 3 simple steps bring you strategically implemented, tangible results quicker than ever for the SAP enterprise. In step 1, we innovate with you. We start with a vision that's bold enough to drive impactful results, yet allows for nimble execution and growth. Step 2, transform. We can accelerate growth by enabling emerging technologies to change how your people work. We can discover new and actionable insights with enhanced analytics. And we can protect the enterprise through intelligent automation of governance, risk, and compliance. Then, step 3, succeed. With the right mix of innovation, execution, and results, our enhanced SAP capabilities deliver success with agility and purpose. Realize your vision, accelerate your success, and face the future with confidence. To get started, go to protiviti.com/SAP.
What's up, everyone? This is Bruno with 360. So we've got our guest starting to join for this Ask the Expert session. So we're going to have, again, a lot of fun. And I hope you guys have got lots of questions. And please ask us pretty much anything. And I'm sure these guys will answer it. They'd better. So. And again, we don't have one Patrick, but we've got two Patricks. So in the meantime, okay, Chris, if you can show that slide. So on LinkedIn, feel free just to chat together with all the registrants of the event. And actually that chat will not appear on the StreamYard. It's just going to be exchanged within the rest of the community of the event. So I think we were about 1,000 today to register. So that's something very nice to be doing. Anyway, so for this third session of the day, so it's going to be ask or talk to the expert, ask us anything. So, well, Keith, you want to introduce yourself very briefly?
Sure. My name's Keith Johnson. I'm a Chief Technology Officer for C Beyond Data, based here in Northern Virginia. Glad to be here.
Pauline?
Hi, I'm Pauline Lancaster with 360 Suite. I'm a pre-sales engineer. And prior to joining, I've been here 5 years. And prior to joining, I did work with BusinessObjects as a consultant for about 10 years. And I'm also near Keith as well in Northern Virginia.
Patrick, well, which one? So for Patrick from Productivity.
Yes, thanks, Bruno. I'm Patrick Neesmith. I'm a director with the SAP Data and Analytics at Productivity, based in Atlanta, and been working with BusinessObjects since about 2003. And I don't know if you can call me an expert, but I'm hoping that this tweed hat from Kilkenny will at least make me look like I know what I'm talking about today.
And if it doesn't do the job, I see that you've got a special fridge behind you, so we'll work it out.
Exactly. I will neither confirm or deny if there's Guinness in here.
Well, we know. And then Patrick.
So Patrick Sims, hi everyone. I'm with SAP. I'm with our Global Center of Excellence for Analytics. I've been with the company about 19 years. I came from BusinessObjects side of the house, and in Shamrock theme, I'm the third prong of the Northern Virginia contingent today.
By the way, just before we get things started, we'll have a quiz at the end. So we've got lots of fun questions that we'll be asking, and again, just you'll need to go on the link that we'll be sharing, and you need to be quick to answer to earn as many points as possible to get the gift cards. There are some fun questions out there. So guys, anyway, thanks again for all joining, and so to the audience, please feel free to put comments in the chat box. Okay, so overall, I've got actually a first question. For you guys in terms of upgrade, how many upgrades, like Keith, have you ever done, have you done in your life, just by curiosity?
Wow, that's a great question. So, uh, more than a few, less than a lot.
Mm.
Um, I've been on the technology stack since the inception back in 2001 with Crystal Enterprise. So, upgrades all along that way. So, usually there's probably less than half a dozen per year. So I don't know. Well, we're at over 50 or so, or 60. So, and that doesn't include all the sort of the internal ones, right? You go through prior to doing a customer's upgrade, so you understand what challenges you may be in for, and how to work through them. So,
I think Pauline, prior joining 360, you were a consultant, and I think you've done quite a few migrations, upgrades.
Yeah, upgraded starting with version 5, going to 6.5. The earlier ones were, pretty drastic differences. And then going to, what was it, XIR, was it R2 after that? And then all the way to 3, 4, version 4. So yeah, I've done a lot, but yeah, not probably, definitely not hundreds, but yeah, per environment, you count up the environments, you count up, yeah, you mess up one time, you got to do it over again. So it adds up for sure. I had my share.
Patrick,
Yeah, like Pauline, probably hundreds of them, going back to Bob J 5 and 6, pre SAP, all the way up to today, getting people up to 4.3, and even the new Business Objects PCE, which is their Business Objects in the Cloud offering. Was called EX up until a month or so ago, but we're helping several major clients get to that as well.
Are you saying that SAP just changes occasionally names?
I know, who would think it never happened before.
It's shocking.
We can probably start to take bets for what will be the next name change. So it's a bad joke. And then Patrick Sims.
I mean, since I'm on the product side of the house, I tend to do it only when I need to upgrade my VMware.
Lucky you.
Exactly.
So in terms of questions, I know it's always a good debate. Do you guys have got any comments to do? Should you do an upgrade, in place, side by side? Any comments on that, KJ?
I would, depending on how long a system has been in place, if it's fairly new, I would usually stick with like an in place for the most part. If it's been around for a while, then I would definitely recommend a separate installation and a migration over to that new installation. It's a nice way to do some housekeeping, and sort of clean up the dirty laundry that's been accumulating for years. So that's usually sort of a good start to figure out where you want to go. I don't know. Anybody else have a rule of thumb for that?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I think a lot of times though we would, especially for, more major releases or point releases, service packs, yeah, I'd say do those in place. But major releases, we tend to recommend, put it on new servers, especially since most people are using virtual servers anyway. It's pretty easy to spin those up, and it reduces risk. And we're at Productivity, we're all about reducing risk. So yeah, that would be my recommendation there. Especially now going to Bob J PCE in the cloud. We are recommending that clients do an upgrade on new servers on premise first, and then migrate over to PCE. And the reason we're recommending that is that the PCE product runs on Linux, and most people tend to have Bob J running on Windows on premise. So that gives us an opportunity to get it onto Linux first, make sure we work out any kinks there before we try to move them up to the cloud.
Patrick Sims, any recommendations around that?
No, I mean, I think that sounds about right. The one thing I would add, though, or emphasize, I think, when Keith spoke about, checking on the dirty laundry, I think that's something that we hear internally that enough people don't take the opportunity for an upgrade to actually review what they've got in their repositories. And I think that's a great message that people should take to heart.
And talking about that, any good practices then in terms of cleanup prior doing that type of work? Is this something you recommend, don't recommend? Thoughts on that, thoughts around backups?
No, I think you guys probably, since you do it for real, you probably have the better thoughts on that.
Yeah, KJ, Patrick?
Yeah, we certainly always recommend, that you try to use the opportunity of an upgrade to clean up things that aren't used. That's why we love when our clients are using 360 Suite, because that helps us to identify stuff that's not used, users maybe that are no longer really active, and we can do some cleanup before doing an upgrade, which is only going to make the upgrade go faster and smoother, and it's less to test too.
Right. That's the key. Yeah. Not moving things that don't work in the current environment. You want to, get rid of those, or no one's run. And if you pare down your environment, you're going to see improved performance. If you have less documents, makes everything, backups, everything a lot smoother. So it's definitely a good opportunity to do that cleanup.
And typically what we see with customers, it's always a good idea because you just reduce, the size of the pie, and it's a lot easier to be moving. So I just start to see questions coming in, so that's cool. So the first question I have is actually around what is Roamby Analytics? Has SAP acquired it, and is it integrated with SAC?
So Roamby we've deprecated now, so we're not further developing it. At first, when we acquired them, it was going to be our strategy to have that be the mobile development platform, but instead they proceeded with building one for SAC instead. So Roamby is no longer really a thing for us from a new innovations and roadmap standpoint.
And that was around mobility at the time. What was the idea behind it, right? If I recall.
Yep, all mobility. Yep.
Okay. And by the way, in 4.3, has mobility improved?
Yes.
Because it's always a concern, for business users. And
the Webi experience is still going to get even better in 4.3 and subsequent service packs. But yes, in general, the 4.3 mobile experience is better than 4.2.
Okay, let's take another question from Eamon. Did you think this was a good idea from SAP to release 4.3 with many features are missing until SP2, and then ask them to upgrade? So I know that we know that in the first service pack there were things missing, and do you guys have got any comments? I think, for example, KJ, I think you were involved in an upgrade recently. I know we had a chat on that.
Yeah, and I would say it really depends on your customer environment, right? What features and functionality are you using? The BusinessObjects platform is, there's a lot of feature functionality with it, and every customer is different, right? You have the core pieces, right? But not everybody uses everything. So I really think that comes down to more of a customer by customer kind of basis. We've got a couple customers running on 4.3 now. I think the new Fiori interface, now that, again, this hasn't happened in about 10 years, right? So the last time we all had to deal with this was back when we upgraded to 4.0, right?
Yeah.
All of our customers had to go through that relearning experience to the BI Launchpad. They're going to have to do it now with the Fiori interface, as well as being able to leverage the new Webi interface as well, which I think in itself is a great opportunity, right? To be able to leverage that new interface for developing reports, or especially your ad hoc self-serve kind of users. So I do think, to upgrade now is a good thing for certain customers. There may be other ones that are leveraging, some of those features that aren't supported yet, that Patrick from SAP covered this morning on the Service Pack 2 presentation. But again, I think that really comes down to a customer by customer kind of discussion.
Patrick Sims.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I mean, from a corporate standpoint, I think it was important for us to release it to at least let people know that we were not kidding. We're real about maintaining BobJ and keeping it up and showing where we're going with the modern UI and user experience. So yeah, even though there were some flaws in the first service pack, yes, I think it was a good move for us to do.
And Pauline, what are we hearing from customers in terms of 4.3? Things improving in that regards?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, I've mostly talked to people that are in the planning phases. I think the big thing is the Fiori Launchpad. So, it's, get it installed and start letting users take a look at it before you move over, because it's a big learning curve, right? So it's totally different interface, and so it's a good opportunity to, maybe you're not necessarily ready to go to 4.3, but at least you get it installed, maybe in a sandbox, and have users test and begin to get familiar.
Yep, I agree. We're seeing that as well. There seems to be a lot of fear around the new look and feel, and yeah, one way we're kind of helping to alleviate that is by starting off with a sort of a sandbox install and letting the business user spend a little time with it to get familiar with it, and then they're realizing it's not that big of a deal. It's intuitive, and it's just getting them familiar with it.
While we take some more questions, I'd like to hear from the audience, what are their biggest challenges when they do upgrades? So please, just put some comments around that, because we know, upgrades, that's always these are complex projects. So
and while you're getting those questions, Bruno, I might add that, we've mentioned it before, but for those who are on 4.2 Service Pack 5 or greater, you can actually start to sort of test run the Fiori BI Launchpad with the early beta versions, if you will, that are available out of the box with 4.2. So you can get people to at least start to think that way with the big tiles and what the design kind of looks like. That's pretty much no fuss, no muss on the side of you guys.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's take a question from someone from YouTube, from Kev. Will there be an on-prem version of SAC? Is there any plans around that?
No. SAC is built from the cloud, for the cloud, all about cloud. So.
Hey, by the way, I've got to tell Pauline, I know she's got kids, same as I do, and the fact that we're live on YouTube as well is our kids always want to say, hey, what do you want to do in the future? Oh, I want to be a star on YouTube or whatever. So I'm not sure if we're stars or anything, but we're not.
If you can tell me how to monetize this, my kids will be very proud of me.
So I would say, you'll look cooler. In fact, my daughter was texting me earlier and just telling Bruno, Dad, you're on YouTube. That's cool. So at least I won't sound as old anymore. So
you're hip, Bruno. You're hip.
I'm sure all the audience that's got kids, they probably all say the same thing. My daughter, she's listening. She's going to tell me, Dad, what are you saying? We've got a question from Kim. What sort of issues have you seen moving from Windows to Linux? So that's always a
So the main issues are going to be around security. You're having to move from LDAP or from AD to LDAP, and then also with SQL Server connections, you have to use the Data Direct connector. So those are the types of things that we see. Not major issues, but there's certainly things that you have to take into consideration when you're moving to Linux.
Any comments around that, Pauline, KJ?
Yeah, just I supported a Linux environment for many years, and the challenges we typically had were that less people used Linux, so I always waited at least for a service pack or maybe a patch just to make sure that anything got worked out, because the majority of customers using business objects are on Windows, and so they the issues get fleshed out sooner. So yeah, Kim, I would make sure you're into a release that has been out for a while, has maybe a service pack or patch, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. One thing, I've heard from customers, one concern about, Linux is that, yeah, just like that, they don't have the people in-house that understand the Linux operating system and know how to support it. The nice thing, though, with PCE is that SAP is taking on ownership of that OS level maintenance. So they're supporting that. So you don't need to have those resources on your staff.
Yep.
That's good.
KJ, any comments around that?
No, I mean, most of our customers are on Windows, so we haven't really run across Linux all that often.
Okay. Yeah, in general, from what we hear is don't be the first one.
and honestly, we thought that was kind of interesting.
Have to, but that's always a valid principle.
Yeah, we did think it was sort of interesting, though, that SAP's BOBJ PCE is only running on Linux right now, and even on Azure, they're putting it on Linux. So I don't know if that's going to change in the future. SAP, Patrick, I don't know if you maybe have any insight.
I haven't really seen any insight into why the data centers are doing what they're doing, so I don't have anything on that one, Patrick.
I'm wondering if that's got to do because of heck.
Probably,
yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. There was actually a question I got a text earlier from actually one of our customers who was from Jawahar, who was asking, well, you know what, with Explorers being phased out, we still got all these Explorers. Is there any workaround around that?
So the hard way would be to try to replicate the Explorer kind of UI in Lumira, which we've seen done. Mm-hmm. The easy way would be to take that as a moment and a use case to move to SAC, because the Explorer interface is part of the data exploration capability within SAC. So taking your existing universes, and it's nicer too, because all you need is a universe. You don't have to create an info workspace for it. You simply point it at that universe and start using the Data Explorer.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're recommending that the clients who are using Explorer, move that to Analytics Cloud.
Well, I know he was trying to find a workaround, and I told him, actually, I'm not aware of any workaround. I know Infosol had a solution around that, but I don't know much more. We've got a question from John Clark. Why is there a feature for repointing Webby from UNV2NX, but there's none for Crystal reports?
I suppose I have to answer that one, and the answer is I don't really know why. I mean, I suppose it's because traditionally Webby is semantic layer based, whereas Crystal has really only been more universe focused since the dawn of Crystal Enterprise. So, but I don't know what the plans are in terms of as we move down the 4.3 pike, whether we'll continue to do that with Crystal as well, but I would imagine we will.
And you can always get 360, so that will.
There you go.
Well, sorry to say that. That's it's a core functionality that we have. So yes.
Actually, I'm happy to hear that there are people who like to use universes with Crystal.
Yeah.
Most of my traditional Crystal folks are all like, no way.
Actually, funny behind the scene, Kim, to your question earlier, I had Patrick Perrier who was saying, you might be better off to stay on Windows. That was his recommendation to you, knowing your environment. So that was what he was thinking. Let's take another question. We got a question from Mohan. One of my customers using only Crystal reports. Can they upgrade to 4.3?
Sure, if they're licensed for it, then yes. I mean, as long as they got licensed via the business objects side of the house, and we're not talking about Crystal Server. That's a difference. That's a whole different animal from a licensing standpoint.
Are there any limitations in 4.3 around Crystal?
No, it's just like before, you install with Crystal now 2020 and Crystal Enterprise, so you're still good to go with both. In fact, Crystal got some upgrade as well in 4.3, so it's all 64-bit clients now, as well as some other additions.
And I see a comment from Siva who's saying, there are a lot of options in 4.3 that are missing in Webi. Is this still the case? I know there were issues before, but I think pretty much that was fixed.
There are some. We covered them this morning in the earlier session where we looked at a laundry list of things that were missing in Service Pack 1 that are coming back in Service Pack 2. And by the way, for those who were listening this morning, the FTP question, I got a note from product management that they have confirmed that FTP will be back in Service Pack 2. So you'll be able to publish to FTP now as well.
Nice. Cool. Matthias is asking, what is the status on live universe connection from SAC to BobJ?
It exists today. In fact, it exists starting with 4.2. So the universe connector itself, though, has gotten better in the 4.3 release. So it's now live universe connector 3.1, and it can get to both universes and Webi data models.
Okay. Do you have any recommendation? We see another comment from Wiki. What are the good practices of migrating Webi reports to SAC? That's a pretty wide question.
Right. So remember, first, the first thing is you're not going to migrate content, right? You're not exporting out of Webi into SAC. It's more a matter of, do you want to try to replicate that Webi document in SAC and move forward, or would you like to take what you've got in the Webi document and simply use SAC as an extension where you might add what if or predictive or AI, ML type stuff, or some of the smart features that we have, or planning, those kinds of things. So it really comes down to what your use case is in terms of what you want to do with SAC.
Yep, completely agree. And we see, Webi and Analytics Cloud being complementary.
Absolutely.
People still are going to need, Webi and business objects for scheduling reports, bursting reports out to thousands of users, all of that type of stuff. But it's when you want to get down and get some new insights and let take advantage of AI and ML and things like that. That's where Analytics Cloud really shines.
Yep. And that's such a key point. They really should be looked at as complementary. Yep. And as I said this morning, don't look at it as replacing. Look at it as a way to extend Webi.
Yes, exactly.
KJ, any suggestions on that?
No, I mean that they pretty well covered it. I mean,
so when I was asking earlier a question to the audience around what are your challenges when you do, in business objects, or when you do an upgrade, we've got actually Darius who's mentioning, it's content migration. So please feel free, by the way, to put comments around that. Pauline, anything to say around that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times customers have issues if they are moving their users and groups, before you sync up if you have LDAP or Active Directory, make sure, you can configure it, but don't sync it so that when you do the promotion, it's not, you want to be able to get your user content over. And if you do it out of order, if you've already synced the users, they'll have different CUIDs. So sometimes that's what I see the most is, so, I usually recommend they can remove it and then redo the migration, doing it in the correct order. We talked about that in the last session about the 4.3 upgrade. Make sure you get your security over first, access levels. If you're going to do it in pieces, get your access levels, your groups and users over first, so that when you move your content, the appropriate security gets applied correctly. Those are some of the things that.
Yeah, I would also say, try to stay as current as possible. I'm not suggesting you always be on the very latest service pack, but I see a lot of customers get way behind on their upgrades, and they just become more and more challenging the further behind you get. We just finished one last year of a client that had 20,000 reports and still on 3.1, and 12,000 of those were Desky. It it was of large projects. So yeah, that's kind of my recommendation, is to at least try to stay stay as current as possible, and your migrations tend to go a lot smoother.
Especially because I would say from our own corporate standpoint, we are, the love is back for BobJ. So there are a lot of people who stayed on 4.0 and 4.1 and missed all of the great things we started to do with Webi again in 4.2 Service Pack 3. That's when we started getting more visual with it again, brought back some of the love. So, there's a lot you can miss when you skip some of these service packs.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yeah, KJ, you had a word on that?
No, I mean, just all I'll add is, our sweet spot is sort of the federal government, right? And federal government is always usually doesn't tend to be on the bleeding edge, right? They like to be on the edge, but maybe not necessarily the latest and greatest service packs. But yeah, I would say, even for our federal clients, is we try not to get any older than anything, after a year and a half. You want to make sure that you're applying service packs within that window. Otherwise, yeah, you get too far out of date, and then it becomes a larger effort for those updates. So,
or you get forced, if something's no longer working. I mean, I remember one year the browser didn't. It was a version of IE, and it was being updated, and we were so far behind. Then you don't get the planning. You just have to go, depending on the compatibility. So, yeah.
Question from, okay, I'm sorry, I probably won't say the word or your name properly, from Umama Ishwara. Can we migrate BobJ 4.2 reports or universes to SAC?
So once again, migration is not, SAC was built in totally different technology. And so there's no conversion / migration in that sense. But your existing 4.2 universes can be used by SAC with the Live Universe connector, as can your Webi documents. As of Service Pack 8, you can start using the Webi data model piece as well. And so those can be used as data sources for SAC.
And in general, what we see for customers that went the SAC route is typically they keep BobJ for their traditional reporting, for these scheduling capabilities, which frankly are phenomenal. And when they've got like data viz in general, then they'll start to leverage SAC. Is this, Keith, something that you see in general?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, SAC is still a little bit slow for adoption in the government just yet. I'm hoping I'm hoping that this year we'll finally start to see some adoption or more adoption than there currently is. But yeah, I would agree. Leverage business objects for your workhouse reporting, right? Financial reporting, I'll call it the standard reports that run your business. And then SAC becomes your sort of end user or ad hoc interface, as well as, allowing some of the, we deal a lot with financial folks. So the what if analysis, or, leverage those kind of cool capabilities that are in SAC and really start to understand how they can help your business.
As we all know, I'm saying, as we all know, it's not sexy, but every company, every agency still has those bulk reporting needs, right? Yeah. So it's not getting all the love and attention like the, ooh, look at this cool visual kind of a thing, but it's still very important. And that is still, a fantastic piece of the BobJ platform side. And some people do like to be offline too. I like to play with my WID instead of having to be online somewhere too. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had a lot of clients add Analytics Cloud. I haven't had anyone, get rid of business objects.
Yep. I'd say that's what we have, internally as our intelligence. Most people are using the hybrid notion versus rip and replace.
And at 360, of course, we've been supporting the BobJ community forever. we also now support we got some software working as well for Tableau, and then we'll have
Oh,
BI. But the thing is, I have to say is, let's say 2 years ago, we all heard, oh, we're going to go away from BobJ, and you've got all these great things with Tableau, etc. And that was really like a hype. And then we were just looking at them, well, give it a shot. And, of course, everybody now has got multi-BI. But what happened is people realized that they were really dependent on BobJ scheduling. And they really needed, to have reports. Of course, you need to have these dashboards, but at the end of the day is if you need to execute things, it's not, you really need to get the information that are actually in the Webi reports. And what we've seen so far is just in general, there is nothing that comes close. And as a result, all these deployments, there are not that many that went away, or some did try. We've seen that a couple of times, but at the end, typically the story is, I want to go away, get rid of it. And the final story is, well, you know what? I'm going to leverage BobJ. I'm going to leverage the universes. I will continue to use the scheduling, but I'll use another solution to do the dashboards. That's typically what we see. And that's the reality of it. And we see these stories all the time. So, and in terms of, I was talking to a very large deployment. I think they've got like over 200,000 users. And we were exchanging around the reliability of the scheduling BobJ. And I think they were like, at 99% or something like that. It was extremely high. I don't know, KJ, Patrick, Nismith, would you agree with these?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say, and the other thing we see is we've got a lot of clients that that embed business objects in their own applications.
Yeah.
A lot of times those are client-facing applications. And they're not going to redesign that anytime soon, for sure. So they're going to stick with BobJ.
And there's, the other thing too is I don't see there's any reason, we've toyed with this house as well as customers is you can incorporate, URL links out to those other BI tools, and I'll leave them nameless at this point. But
thank you for not cursing at me, Keith, like Bruno did.
There's no reason you can't embed those URL links within the Fiori, Fiori Launchpad or 4.2 Launchpad, right? Mm-hmm. And access those other tools for running reports or dashboards or whatever. So I mean that's what makes the Launchpad so flexible. You can still utilize it as sort of a cross. I'll use it in double quotes, but sort of a cross-platform BI interface.
And Analytics Hub is built for that. In fact, a couple of Sapphires ago, there were people who were more interested in Hub for that very concept, Keith, than there were people who even wanted to move to the cloud for SAC. So,
yeah, you've got a good point. And actually, Hub is very easy to use, and it's very nice. I feel it's not known enough, but it's an excellent idea, and it works great. Just one comment as well for the audience that has been looking at other BI solutions is just make sure that you stay in compliance with SAP. Just don't go behind the universes. It's not something that we recommend doing for sure. So just make sure you remain compliant. We've got a question from Sven. Will it be possible to reconnect an existing Webi report to the new semantic layer in SAP Data Warehouse Cloud, just like reconnecting different universes in HANA/BW?
So that's all still in the drawing board. Once we get to the common data model piece from Data Warehouse Cloud, then we will definitely be hoping and looking for ways for BobJ to be able to connect to that as well, but we're not there yet.
Okay. A question from VJ on YouTube again. And any difference between the Webi calculation engine behavior of 4.2 and 4.3?
Not that I'm aware of. And as we've said before too, any of your 4.2 content, a key thing for the upgrade is that you don't have to do anything to that content before you go through the upgrade. So all of your functioning Webby documents will still function in 4.3. So I can't imagine that there's been any sort of negative impact in terms of the calculation engine.
Sometimes I like to say that's always like a box of chocolate. It's always looks good. Sometimes there's always
Right.
you taste that's not as good. That's why you need to do regression testing. So it's
Sometimes pieces melted in the box, right?
or you don't see it, and VJ, that's specifically one of the reasons why people they get 360 bind. They want to check on that, and then if they find a regression somewhere, then they do an impact analysis to try to find out what other documents, for example, are impacted. So it's that's a proper practice. So don't assume it's always perfect, and that's part of the job, and that's why we're all here today. So, okay, we got a question from Darren. Commentary seems not to be working in 4.3 SP1. Will that get fixed in SP2? I've got no clue.
What is it?
Commentary.
That I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be working in Service Pack 1, so I have not played with commentary myself.
KJ?
I got nothing on that one. All I will say is I would highly recommend taking a look at what's been updated in the patch 300. So since Service Pack drop in December, right? There's been 3 patches very quickly. So the last one dropped this past weekend, right?
Yep.
Or a weekend ago. So there's been a lot of like little fixes we've noticed. So what I would do is recommend running back through that patch list on the SAP support site and just double checking that. I haven't kicked the tires on the commentary stuff in SP1 yet.
Maybe if the audience has got some answers to that, since we don't have it, please feel free to answer. And if not, that's probably a question we can take offline to the product after that. So, so sorry, we don't have the answer. By the way, someone's asking, will there be a recording of this morning's sessions? Yes, there will be. And it's going to be on LinkedIn and then on 360 Suite YouTube channel. So it's available there, and just go on it, and all the recording of today and from the past as well will be recording there. So feel free to visit it on our YouTube channel, 360 Suite. Okay, Noel is so that was referring to the question I had asked around challenges. So Noel is saying major upgrade challenge is that we do it rarely, and there is always a big learning curve. So yeah, I think it's the same for everyone. One thing I think we can definitely recommend is each time you're finished with your upgrade, always plan for the next one. Make sure that you keep these good practices. Make sure that you clean up your environment, you archive the proper content, keep good habits, because very often people say, hey, I'm done with the project, I'll do it in 2 years, 3, I'll do it in a few years. And people, they all forget about all the good practices that they put in place. It's like, the December 31st things that you decide to do for the coming year. Week, probably most people forgot about. It's the same thing when you do an upgrade. Just yes, it doesn't happen that often, but just keep the good practices. Clean up your environment, do the proper things just to plan for the next one. And this morning, in fact, we were talking around, UNX. Damn, just go to UNX now. Just don't wait until the last moment, because there'll be other things that you haven't thought about. So if you can, plan it now.
Amen, brother.
I will say though, as technologists, right? I think doing upgrades, we have more tools at our disposal. If you look back, 5 years ago, or even a little closer than that, when we did upgrades from 4.0 to 4.1, or even 4.1 to 4.2, just the ability to and it was mentioned earlier, stand up virtual machines, stand them up, deploy, test, rip them down, rebuild is so much easier nowadays than it was 5 years ago, right? Or a little bit later or a little bit older than that when we had to have physical servers, right? So just the ability to run through sort of test scenarios before you do it for real, I think, allows us to get a better handle on upgrades or the impact of those upgrades than we did prior, right?
Yep. Yeah, and also I'd say, certainly work with a partner, whether it's us or another
Absolutely.
partner. I mean, we're doing these upgrades constantly, so we're running into the issues, long before most people are, and we know, how to get around them. So I'd say, yeah, one, work with a partner. Also look at managed services. I know we offer that. A lot of other partners offer managed services, and we include upgrades as part of that offering. So instead of it being a big deal and you having to figure out where's the money going to come for it, it's already budgeted, it's already built into your managed services contract. And then the last thing I'll say on that is, bringing up the SAP BusinessObjects PCE offering, which is moving business objects to the cloud. SAP's taken on that those upgrades for customers now as well. So. So yeah, let somebody else handle it. Don't make it your problem, and then do more frequently.
Talking about the PC, just to be clear, yes, SAP will be handling all these upgrades. The thing though is companies like CB on Data, with whom Keith is, or Productivity, company with whom you're with, Patrick. Basically, if you go down to the administration, to the testing, all that actually is not handled by SAP. So it's handled by yourself, or you need to hire a company like CB on Data or Productivity to do the job on that.
Yep.
So it's not like, yes, you've got the upgrade, but you still have all the other work, testing, daily activity, etc.
Absolutely. And I will say on the testing piece, using a tool like 360 Suite, it allows us to do much more thorough testing. We can test all the reports, and it's more accurate because it's doing it programmatically rather than just somebody pulling up two reports and comparing them visually themselves. So that's going to help you as well.
It's a no-brainer at the end, is you're able to automate your testing. It's like, you don't want to take that risk.
Yep.
So if you can, just test everything, and you're just drastically going to remove the risk. And at the end, nobody wants to be doing testing. It's a pain. It's costly to do. I think we've all done some testing. It's just we all know it's not a fun thing to do. And eventually you'll ask your business, and your business will say, well, no, or yes, I did. And at the end, no, nobody does it. So that's the sad truth about it, but we've got to be realistic. Question.
Well, before you go there, Bruno, I will add, as the corporate guy, the BobJ partner community, as evidenced by the 3 companies shown here, are the best in the business. And really, you guys all really do journeyman work in terms of helping with things like upgrades and some of the stuff that's not as, cool as other things sometimes. And you've all been great, partners along the way.
Thank you. And frankly, we try to support the community. So
just
as being today, is we try to share knowledge.
We have the gray hair to prove it.
So do I, unfortunately.
Well, the good thing is at least we still have hair.
That's true.
We're joking about RCO doesn't have hair anymore, and we used to joke. He used to do regression testing before founding the company for a big oil and gas company, and we always used to joke where he was actually working in the basement of the big building. And he would need to go up to the last floor to go and print all the documents and then just check them side by side. Mm-hmm. And then he would joke saying, I just lost my hair doing that. And that's why I wanted to do regression testing, because it was so painful. to do. So he said, it's not something that's well suited for humans. True story. It's we actually, on one event we did years ago with Pauline, we took RCO's new picture, and then he gave us his old picture from his driver's license that was super old, and then we showed that during the event. It was pretty fun, and Pauline was saying, "Damn, Bruno, you're going to get fired for doing that." But he's a funny guy, so he didn't mind about it, and it's quite true. So. We got a question from Kimberly. Major upgrade issue. 4 in place is the complexity and number of servers in our infrastructure. 4 new server upgrade, again, is it the complexity and customization in our systems? We are looking to modernize and resize in the coming months. Who wants to take that question?
Yeah, I mean, well, when doing an upgrade, I think it's definitely a time to look at your server sizing. We're seeing people. A lot of customers are able to consolidate into fewer servers, whether they're virtual or not. So I think an upgrade is certainly at the time to look at that, and that actually ultimately helps reduce some complexity.
Any other comment? Let's, after that, take another question. It's just time is flying. I didn't see time.
Yeah, I don't, from an architecture perspective, there's not a whole lot, I would say the core bolts haven't really changed. So again, with this question, it all depends on, what version are you migrating from, but the overall architecture of business objects really hasn't changed within 4.3 per se. There are some nuances in terms of, the RESTful web service in terms of authentication for the Fiori Launchpad. So there are some sort of basic tweaks, but the basics between having separate web app servers or separate app servers, or even supporting servers, those pieces really haven't changed. Right. Overall. So at least it's a good thing, right? The things still sort of work the same way, but there are some smaller tweaks kind of under the hood in regards to that.
I hope it helps. And Kim, if we haven't answered your question, just feel free to send me an email and we'll get you an answer. Let's take a last question from John. Hey, John, long time. Good to have you on. I hope all is well. So you got a question. So, SAP doesn't have a migration path for universes to SAC. With on-premise support ending 2027, well, we could talk about that. Wouldn't be prudent for SAP to have a roadmap. I can't see all the companies rebuilding universes, that's for sure.
So first off, 2027 is not a hard date. That's the starting point from the first release of 4.3. So that's why we say in all of our stuff that it's at least 2027, if not further. I'm sure, as we're looking at DWC and some of the other things we're doing internally that have already been mentioned, we will be looking at ways, and we've tossed around ideas on ways to have the universe be something that can sort of live on outside of just the BobJ platform, if that's where we go. But right now there is no death knell for BobJ. There's no end of life that we're saying for anything like that. So, if and until we get to that point, I think, sticking with the universe is not a bad idea.
And there's nothing about the end of life there is actually
Right.
that is still extended.
Yep.
It's like since 4.2, I think since the intro, there was some miscommunication. Since that time, everybody says, well, is there going to be a next version? Well, listen, it's just been introduced.
Right.
And there's still so many customers on BobJ, frankly, they're not going to go away, John. So,
yeah.
And
Bruno, when
sure,
are you
yes,
scheduling that 4.4 demo?
Let's ask Patrick.
I'm hoping we skip 4.4 and go to 5.0 just for fun.
I don't know if by that time we'll still have hair or something.
You'll have pulled it all out by then. Yeah.
So anyway, just to close on the session is KJ. Just do you want to say a few words around CB on data, just as a very high level, and after that we'll ask Patrick to do the same.
Yeah, just CB on data. We're a financial BI company based here in Northern Virginia. Our focus is our federal customers and the government.
Yeah, in Protivity, we're a global consulting firm. We do everything from risk and compliance consulting to BPI to technology consulting. We have a strong SAP practice, and we'd love to work with some of you folks on the phone.
Awesome. So, guys, it was great to have you. And you know what? I think we've got another minute left. Let's take a last question because I thought we would have the next quiz. So, okay, well, overall, the next session is going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So it's going to be with Heather Rapetti. So she actually presented last year, and it was really a hit. We had lots of good comments around the session that she had presented. So today she'll be presenting around different ways of formatting Webi. So guys, again, thank you very much all for joining today, for taking all these questions. Overall, I think you've done pretty well. It's outside of Patrick Sims, we can all argue about it. By the way, KJ and Pauline are next to you, so they can probably come over for the barbecue tonight because
That's true. I'll tap the Guinness keg in about an hour.
We'll be there. How to bulk
you don't know these guys, they'll
from
come.
one universe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us, Bruno.
Thanks, folks.
Cheers, guys.
To another. The easiest way to do this is to first export a list of Webi reports and the information about their data providers. This can be exported for all Webi documents in your environment at once, the public and personal, or one or the other, or you can do a single folder. First, I'll show you how to do all public folders. So if you go to the menu, select Tasks and Documentation Tasks, create a new task, click Next. I'm just going to run it one time, so I'll leave the frequency at the default. Exports, expand public folder, and select Webi Documents Data Providers. Expand personal folder and select Personal Webi Documents Data Providers. Click Next. Nothing here for options. Destination, so where do I want that file sent? Title. Okay, I'm going to select Excel. Select Excel and hit the arrow. You can also do a CSV export. Click Add. Click Next. Notification, that's just notifying you the export ran. I'll skip that. I'll skip trigger events and then add. So that will export all Webi data providers from public folders and personal folders. Maybe you just want to export a single folder. If you go to Resources, Public Folders, and select your folder, or you could Control Select and select multiple folders. I'm just going to select one. Go to Documentation. On the right hand side, scroll down and select the XLS icon under Webi Documents Data Providers. This will run in the background. To retrieve this, if this takes a while to run, you can go to Tasks and Web Actions, and the file will you'll be able to download it there once it finishes. So if you need to log off, but mine has, it has shown up in the finished tab, and I can download here, but it also finished and it's in the bottom of my window here. I'll open the Excel file. So here's my Excel file. It gives me the name of the document, the path, the universe that it's currently pointing to. So this is the current universe ID, and the column that I'm going to update is column K. That's the new universe ID. So where do I want that pointing? Right now, I'm just going to repoint everything that's pointing to the eFashion. They're all pointing to a eFashion UNV. I want them all to point to a of the UNX eFashion universe. So I'm just going to update that. Go back to 360. Go back to the menu, tasks, and administration tasks. Select new task. Give it a title and click next. You can set the frequency. I'm going to run this at a later time. Maybe I want it to run tomorrow. You can also run it right now. Click next. So the process that I want is under resources. Expand that and select detailed Repoint Webby universe. The source kind is going to be file system because I have that file. If you click on fetch template, that's going to give you an empty template. It'll look just like the export we did. So the export saves you time. You don't need to populate all that information. I'm going to choose the file that I just updated. Okay, and I'm going to click process and click next. I can set up a notification if I want to be emailed when that's finished. I'm not going to pick any trigger events. There's my confirmation. I click add. So right now the job will run tomorrow, and it will bulk repoint those Webby reports. I will see it when it's running. I'll see it in the running tab, and it'll be in the finish tab once it's complete.
Hello. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Are you ready to do another awesome session today?
I hope so.
Well,
As ready as I'm going to be.
Yes. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I would like to introduce today Heather Repetti and Paul Grill from Infosol, one of our partners, been a long time 360 Suite partner. Last year, Heather also did a session with us on our last virtual event, which was an amazing hit. Hi, Paul. And so we decided to bring it back for some more. People seem to love your sessions, Heather. You do great teaching with what you're about to show today. And from my understanding, it is fun formatting with Webby.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. And hi, Paul. Maybe you want to do a quick introduction for you and Heather. Tell us a bit about Infosol and what's going on with you guys before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, sure. My name is Paul Grill. I'm the CEO of Infosol. We're a business intelligence solutions company who specialize in business objects, everything business objects. We've been a partner of Business Objects and SAP for 25 years. And I'll hand over to you, Heather, to introduce yourself.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So I'm Heather Repetti. I work with Paul at Infosol, and I have been working with business objects for quite some time. All I will say is since before 4.1 existed. I don't want to date myself too much. And, as we jump in, I was going to talk a little bit more about, my love for business objects and web intelligence and, just I guess that's kind of the short intro. We'll add some more later. How's that? We'll save some for the presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And as in with the last sessions, if you've got questions, post them. Paul's going to help field some of those questions for Heather as she goes along with the session. But put them in the comments section. Anything that you may have in regards to what she's about to showcase today. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Neal with 360 Suite, account executive out here, managing kind of the West Coast. And I work closely with Paul as well. So I'll turn it over to Heather now.
All right. I'm going to.
I will mute.
There we go. Okay, so you should now be looking at my presentation. Do you see the cover screen? All right, I'm going to assume we do.
Yes.
Yeah, we see it. We see it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it. That's the last question I have for a little while. So like we said, I'm Heather Repetti, and one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about before I jump into everything is, some of my favorite things about business objects. So my absolute favorite thing is the versatility. It has a lot of really cool canned elements like tables and charts, which are really cool. And you can make a lot of really nice dashboards with these elements. But one of the things that I really, really love to do is find new ways to make all of these elements even more interesting. And that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to kick it off with kind of a hypothetical question, which is what's your well, not hypothetical, I guess, but a question which is what's your favorite color? So if we were in a room together today and I handed out a box of crayons and I said, take one, which one would you choose? So with that information in mind, let's say I took all of your answers and I put them all into a data set. And then I made a Webi chart out of them. And this is just a simple column chart. And you can see all the different colors. Obviously, orange is my favorite, so it's winning. And it's pretty visual, right? You get an idea, but it's not exactly the best visualization. So maybe we add some color to the chart, right? So now it's a little bit more dynamic and you can kind of see each color, see which ones are jumping out, which ones are ahead, which ones are behind. And this is really cool too. But as I looked at this, I started thinking, this is neat, but what's another way I can really show this? And it kind of clicked for me. And I came back to the crayons, which is why I opened with that. And I said, what if I took these colors and I made it into a box of crayons? So now, you can see each crayon, each color represents the number of responses, and it's kind of sticking out of the crayon box. Wouldn't this look a lot cooler in my dashboard? So just to let everybody in on a little secret ahead of time, and this is kind of like spoiler, but that's okay. What you're looking at with the crayon box isn't actually a column chart. It's a table. And not only is it a table, it's actually a horizontal table, not one of the standard vertical tables. And not only is it a horizontal table, it's actually a bunch of them kind of strung together by color. And as I start to build it, I'll explain it a little bit more, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there so to get you thinking about, whoa, what's going on here and how are we going to do this? So before I jump into designing this, the other part I wanted to talk about is where did this concept come from? Why did I come up with this idea? So last year, I spoke at our virtual conference, which was the Speak BO experience, and I did a presentation on inserting bars into a table. And this is kind of the end result that I presented at that particular seminar. And you can see it's really visual and it has the different colors and everything there in a nice little summary. And again, I looked at this and I thought, wow, that's really cool. But wouldn't it be even neater if I could do something more representative, some sort of a picture or something in place of the bars? And that's where the crayon concept kind of popped into my head. And I said, oh, that would be really cool. Let's try and make that happen. Before I start designing, I do want to give you all of the elements that you'll need so that when you go back to your desk and you try to do this on your own, you have all the pieces there in front of you. And these will also be included in my slide deck as well. So for the query objects, we really only need one, which is that list of all the different favorite colors. Once we have that, we need to know, some different things along the response line, such as what is the count of all the responses? And here I wanted to highlight that I'm using an operator, which is the all. And what that does is it tells Webi to count not just the distinct favorite colors, but all of them. And I'll kind of show you that when we start building. And then finally, max response count as well. So what is the greatest response count in the report? And I need that because I'm going to use a percentage. I don't want to use a whole number. So that's where I'm kind of going with this, is I'm going to take the response count and the max response count and calculate a percentage. And I also wanted to highlight that I'm using the no filter function as well as for each. And that's all I'm going to say now. And like I said, as I build it out, I'll talk a little more about each of those. And then we need some variables for crayon creation. So first you have to say, okay, what's the biggest crayon I want coming out of my box? So I had to come up with a max crayon height. And this was really trial and error. I went in and I kind of played around with it, and I found that a height of 20 looks pretty good. So, that one is kind of on you to figure out how it's going to fit into your dashboard and how big or small you want it to be. Then I need to know what each individual crayon's height needs to be. And again, I'm using a function, which is the ceiling function. And all this is it rounds it up to the next integer. So again, the rest of it I will kind of talk about as I build it out. And then finally, the body of the crayon. How tall is the middle of that crayon? So for this, I'm using the fill function, which just plugs in whatever I tell it, and then the number of the measure, which is going to be the crayon height. And I also highlighted here this char 13. This is an ASCII character, and it's a hard return. So that's what's going to bring us down a line and make that cell grow in an upward direction. And then finally, there's some variables for filler, which I'm just going to kind of put out there so that you can see them, but I'm going to talk about them more as we build as opposed to now. The next thing you're going to need is some pictures of crayons, because you have to have an image in order to insert it into Webi. So I have these crayons, and then I split them apart into the middle, the top, and the bottom, because I want the crayon to grow. So I have that middle part that I'm going to use for the growth of the crayon. And then finally, I scrap the bottom of the crayon. And why, you might ask? This is why. Because when I put them side by side and I looked at them, I said, oh, the one on the left looks funny. It looks like a bunch of crayons sitting on a crayon box. The one on the right looks cooler because it looks like they're coming out. So it's really just an aesthetics thing. What if you don't have images of crayons or don't know how to break them apart? So for those of you who have Adobe Photoshop or some sort of photo editing product, I would use that. If you don't have access to that, this is kind of a great website that I like, pixelart.com. And this is kind of a light version of Adobe Photoshop that's free on the web. So you can go out there and you can kind of colorize and edit your photos there. The final picture you need is a crayon box. As everyone can see, mine is generic and does not represent anything in particular, but you can get your own image, and that will be the last piece. So with that being said, let's go make some crayons. We're going to jump into Webi. There we go. So first, I'm going to start a new Web Intelligence document. And also, I wanted to point out before I did that, I just have this as an Excel spreadsheet. And this is literally just a list of colors in an Excel spreadsheet, one column. And you'll see that when I create my query. I'm going to choose Excel. I'm going to explore and find that file. There we go. And then I have a tab called Data. On that tab is, like I said, one column that's called Favorite Color. I run my query and get started building my document. So I'm going to get rid of some things real quick just to make room. And quick cleanup just to make sure that my table is legible while I build. All right, so we have all of our different colors. So the first thing I had said was we need to know how many of each color exists, that response count. So I'm going to start creating a variable for that. And all I want to do, like I said, is just count the number of responses. And if you remember during the PowerPoint section, I did say I use that all operator, and I wanted to show you what happens if I don't. So you see it's just counting each distinct favorite color. But if I go back in and I add that operator, now I get the count of every single response in each of those colors. So just wanted to make sure to point that out and why I'm doing that. So the next thing I'm highest response that I have if I want to calculate a percentage. So I could do two things. I could add them up and I could say, okay, everything's going to be a percentage of, I think these add to 1,000. I just kind of threw these together. Can check that. Quick count. Yes. So I could just say, okay, divide everything by 1,000 and give me a percentage, but I don't necessarily want that, big of a range of percentages. So what I want to find is I want to use the max response for each color. So the max one I can see here is 285. So I'm trying to find that number. So that's where I'm going to start building the max response variable. So let's see. Max response count. Oops. So let's start basic. Let's just say, okay, what is the max response count? And I click OK. I can add that to my table, but it's kind of going to give me it by each color because all the colors are in the table. So I also want to see what's happening in the report too. So I'm going to bring it down here as well and just kind of have a separate box with the max response count as I work through my formula. So you can see now it's saying 1,000 because it's looking at the context of the whole report. So that's where that for each operator that I showed you comes into play. So there's two in here. There's a for all as well. For all removes dimensions from the calculation context. So it takes away whatever dimensions are there. That's not what I want to do. I actually want to add that favorite color dimension so that it's looking at each of them. So I'm going to use the for each. So I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to insert my favorite color. Okay, so this is good, because down here I'm seeing my 285, but up here it's showing each one for each of these different columns. And that is because I have that color dimension in there. So if I remove that dimension, I can still see it's coming out to the 285. But the one thing I had said before was I want to be able to calculate what percentage each color is. So how do I do that? So if I filter this table for just one color, let's pick red, the basic one. Now I have the 180, but again, the response count is still saying 180. What's going on? And that was the final piece of my formula, which was the no filter function. I want to take that filter off of this particular part of my table. And there we go. So now we have the 180 out of 285 that I'm looking for. So if I take these, I can calculate that percentage. So if I add a column on the right, oh goodness, left and right sometimes gets me. I take my response count and I divide it by my max response count. I'm starting to build out my next calculation, which is going to be what is that crayon height supposed to be. So I have a 0.63, so I know that 180 is 63% of 285. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to multiply that by my max crayon height, which I haven't added yet. Let's put that. But again, I don't like the decimal, so I want to apply something there as well so that there is no decimal. And that was that ceiling formula, which rounds it up every time. And I want to round up because I don't really want to round down to 0 per se. Now I have a height of 13. So I can turn my formula, and this is going to be the crayon height. And if I come out here and I change my filter, you can see that it's going to update for each of these different colors. So let's go to orange. 20, because the orange is the max, 285 and 285. So it's going to be a height, the max crayon height. Table that I mentioned to my report. And I'm going to put for now, the crayon height into the table. All right. Let's move it up. I don't really need a header for this. We'll get rid of that as well. So here's the crayon height. And I don't really need this first column either. I don't need, quote, the table headers because I'm just building the box of crayons. So I'm going to get rid of that and just keep the numeric column. So this is going to be the height, but now I need to actually put the height of the body here. And that was that other formula that I showed, which was the crayon body formula. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the crayon height and I'm going to fill this block up with spaces and returns in the amount of the crayon height that I want. So I come in here and I say fill by crayon height. And what am I going to fill it with? And this was, again, that blank space that I said before. So quote, space, quote, plus a hard return, which is the ASCII character char 13. I put that in. And I swap it into this cell. I now have this gigantic table that's growing. And why is it so big? Well, part of it is because I didn't filter it yet either. So if I come in here and I add a filter and I just say, okay, the first one's going to be red. Let's build red. You can see it's going to get a little bit smaller. So I do want to clean up my cell and my table a little bit. So one of the things I want to do is I don't want to make it this wide. It's going to be a crayon, so it should be moderately small. So I'm going to just set it to a width of 0.5. And for my auto height, I can leave it at 0.16. It doesn't really matter, but I like even numbers, so I'm going to set it to 1/4 of an inch. The alignment is good. Borders, I don't want borders around it. That will look weird when I start to do the crayons. And then for the appearance, this is where we get the image of the crayon and add it to the background of the file. So if I click on image from file and click add, I can explore out and I have all of these different crayon pieces. And I do have bottoms in case we want to use them, but today we're going to stick with the middle and the top. So this is the red crayon. So I'm going to pick that red middle and then click apply. And it looks kind of weird. It's all kind of shoved up to the top left corner. So what I can do here is I can actually change the display to stretch. And when I do that, it nicely fills in that body of the crayon. So there is our red crayon with body. And one other thing I like to do too is in my table itself, I like to give my tables descriptive names. So I want to know that this is the red table. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the name of the table to red. That way, as I'm aligning things, I know which one I'm looking at. So there's the body of our red crayon. Now we need the top of the crayon. So I'm going to add another row above. And on this one, set to, I don't want to auto fit the height. I just want to put a set height in here. So I'm going to set it to 1/2 inch because it's just the top of the crayon. It doesn't have to grow or change. And then I'm going to change the appearance and I'm going to choose that red crayon top. And when I click apply, there's my red crayon. Pretty cool. So we have that. How do we get the next crayon? So I'm going to copy this. And I am going to paste it. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, well, this is going to be the orange one. So the first thing I do is I change my table name. That way I don't get confused. And then for the layout, where do I want this to be? So I like to orient things when I'm doing this to the top left part of my report. So I'm going to orient it to this red first table because if I move the red table, I want everything to move with it. I don't want to have everything tied necessarily to the report itself. I want to tie it to that red table. So I want to put this to the right side of, and this is why I name things red so that I know where it goes at 0 inches. And then for the top, again, I also want to align that to red, the red table, as opposed to the report. That way, if I have to move it, I can just move that red table wherever I want it. And I'll show you that in a second. Click OK. So now I can come in here and I can grab this red table and I can move it and that moves along with it as opposed to trying to orient it to the report. Okay, so it's red. That doesn't make sense. This is supposed to be orange. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to change out the appearance real quick so that this becomes the orange crayon. So I'm going to grab the orange top, click OK, grab the orange body, click OK. And I know now it looks the same, and that's because we didn't change our filter. So if I come in here and I edit my filter, and I change it to orange, we now have the orange crayon. But it looks really weird, right? Because the tops are aligned and not the bottom. And that's one of the kind of, I guess, shortcomings of Webi to me, is that you can't really align things at the bottom. Everything's aligned from the top left and down to the bottom right. So what can we do to get around that? This is where those filler formulas that I kind of briefly showed come into play, and I didn't really want to talk about them because they're hard to explain unless you see it. So what I want to do is I'm going to put a cell above each of these crayons to kind of move them down so the bottoms are aligned instead of the top. And how do I know? I guess the first question is how high that needs to be. Well, it's going to be the difference here. So how do I calculate that? I know the body height, so I should be able to kind of reverse it that way. So we'll start building our filler. So to calculate the height, I know my max crayon height is 20. Right? So if I put that in here and say, okay, I want the max crayon height. And the reason I hard code, or I code that into a formula just so everybody knows, as opposed to just typing 20, is if I change my mind and I come back and I want it to be, let's say 30, it's a lot easier just to go into one variable and change it there, as opposed to changing it in all of these different formulas I'm creating. So I do like to, even if it's just a hard coded value like that, put it into a variable and use it that way so it can be reused over and over again. So again, it's going to be my max crayon height minus each individual crayon height. But I also don't ever want it to be a height of 0 because I want a little bit of space at the top of everything. So I'm going to add 1 just so that I know it's always going to be at least 1. For example, the orange crayon was the max height, so it would have been 0, but now it'll be 1 instead. So that's my height. And then I need to do the same thing I did for this crayon body. I need to create a formula that makes it grow. So I can actually just duplicate what I did for that and just change this to the filler body instead. And instead of it being the crayon height, it's just going to be the filler height in the formula. Now if I add that here, oops, no, it's not the right one, body. And come in here and auto fit the height because I set it to not auto fit before. Click apply. There goes that crayon. And I want to take away the image because this is just a filler. I want it to be a blank cell. And then do the same thing here on the orange. Format my cell to not auto fit height. And I like a 1/4 inch. I try to keep things consistent. At least then everything will be the same size as well. Click OK. Magically, the bottoms of the crayons align, which is really cool. And the other thing I have in my presentation and I like to show is, what if I want to know the response count somewhere? I can put it outside the end of the crayon now that I have this filler block. It's a really good place to put it. So if I come into here, I can just add the response count to the end of my formula, and you'll see when I click OK, it's going to appear in both. And I can kind of clean that up a little bit, make it pretty, bold, center, and now it looks like it's supposed to. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. There we go. Bold, center. It looks like it's supposed to be there as well. It's pretty neat. Put that back to center. So now let's do one more, just so that we can see this all put together. So if I copy the orange and I paste it, come into my table format. I'm going to make this in yellow. I'm going in rainbow order for anyone that's wondering why I'm putting them in this particular order. And now I'm going to put it to the right side of, and again, this is why I like to name things so I can find it, table orange. So I'm going to put it at 0. And then again, I'm going to align to the top side of, and I'm going to align it to red because that's kind of my master table, so to speak. I'm going to click apply. That now jumps up to there. Now let's make the crayon yellow. So that's just in the cell format, and that's just the background image. Bring the yellow top in. Bring the yellow body in. And now I just have to change the filter. And this is like my favorite part. I love doing this part because it's so cool seeing it just kind of automatically come together. So if I come in here and I hit edit filter, I like to call this the magic part. Put on yellow and click OK.
Hey, Heather, this is Bruno with
Hi.
360. I just want to engage a little bit the audience. And it would be, while you're presenting, if the audience could prepare some questions if you got some, so that Heather can answer them at the end of the session. And as well as what are their challenges right now, basically to be doing what you're presenting today, to have some concerns, what type of challenges they have. And I think something that would be interesting as well would be to know which formatting they use as well today, in addition to Webi. Are they using Crystal, or are they using what they're using? So
Absolutely.
just to help to engage a little more. And frankly, what you're presenting is awesome. Good.
Thank
Really
you.
nice.
Yeah, thank
There
you very
would
much.
need to be more green. That's all. That's the only comment I could say today.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
More green color.
Oh, more green. You're right. I should have made green the winner. I can't help it. Orange is still my favorite color, even on St. Patrick's Day. So orange is going to win. Spoiler. Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah. And also, if there are any questions that are relevant, by all means, again, you or Paul can feel free to stop me and interject. I'm happy to answer things along the way as well. I know I'm kind of putting a lot out there, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can, and I did give all the pieces at least in the presentation. So you should be able to go back and recreate.
Now's the chance. We've got an expert, and we get questions around. Do you know anyone who can help with Webi? And yes, we do.
I'm going to get to that in a few minutes as well. So thank you. That's going to be a good segue for me.
Right? Yeah.
So I did kind of lay out all the crayons. You don't have to watch me do every single color. So that's kind of where I'm going to go next. Is I did, take the time ahead of time to at least put the green, the blue, the purple together for you, so I can show you how we get the box in there as well. And the box is really simple. It is just a cell. So I'm going to insert a blank cell, and I'm going to format it. And I made mine. And so remember, each of these crayons, I made a 1/2 inch, and there's 6 of them. So the width ends up being 3 inches. So we can pretty easily set that. And then I made it a height of 2. It kind of looks nice. The box looks better with a border, in my opinion. So I'm going to add a border, and then I'm just going to align it. And again, I'm going to align it to the red column. So I'm going to put it to the left of it and to the bottom side of it, so that it kind of sticks there. So there's my block. Now I just need to add the picture. So I go in, image from file, pick my crayon box, upload it, click apply. There it is. Oh, wait, it looks really weird. Remember the stretch. I just kind of like to point that out again, so that you can see there's a bunch of different display types, but stretch is nice because it kind of fills the picture into the whole block, just like that. So there it is. That's kind of the final finished crayon box. You got your different crayons with your different values, as well as your box. So one of the things, just to throw this out there, that I've kind of played with is, adding filters and things to this. And it was kind of a lot to get into today with the limited amount of time we have. But the one thing I'll say is, there are ways too that you can even have filters on this data if you have other demographics, such as age or, gender, different things like that you want to use when you're filtering. And you can even turn them into, input controls as well. So that's kind of something that I'm playing around with, and I hope to present it in the future. So if you get a chance, check me out, and that might be the next phase of this presentation. Jumping back over here, I guess first thing I'd ask is, are there any questions or anything that anybody wants me to go through with regards to building the crayons or the box?
Don't see any questions coming in the chat session. I think everybody was absolutely bowled over and stunned.
Or confused, but whatever way it works out is good, I guess.
I can think of a certain company whose logo you kind of had in the background there, who'd be very interested in who'd be very interested in this. And now I'm wondering if all these other organizations watching today will think about how they could use Crayola crayons in their Webi reports.
Right?
Well, you can use other things.
In order to engage better user adoption.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a crayon, right? It can be anything. One of the things I actually played around with too was books, which I think would be a really cool visual representation as well, as like books and genre, and kind of ranking them that way, and they can all be different colors and things. So yeah, I have a lot of neat ideas kind of along these lines. And
I have a challenge. I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
So Bruno is always using in his presentations that it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Okay.
Box of chocolates, something to do with a box of chocolates.
That would be funny.
Right?
Yeah. Now I'm picturing like chocolate word clouds or something, where they grow and shrink based on who likes what flavor of chocolate. I'm a milk chocolate person, so that's going to be the winner, just so you know.
Anyway, we do have a question. We have a question that came in through YouTube. So it was a nice session, and a question. It's an interesting question. Do you prefer doing the calculation in Webi, or do you want ETL to do the job? And this is a fantastic question in the sense of, a lot of people struggle with this is your reporting tool like Web Intelligence purely there, right, for the consuming, right, of the information, and then all the heavy lifting in terms of calculations and so forth should really be done, back in your database. And yet you have such powerful capabilities in Web Intelligence to do some pretty amazing calculations and manipulations of the data like you were showing just then. So what are your thoughts on that, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would initially agree with what you just said, but I would add on, I think it really depends on the calculation, right? If it's something super complex that is going to bog down Webi, I would 100% do it in the back end. But if it's something simple, like just counting the number of colors, I would generally prefer to do that in the front end of Webi, just personally. And I think it really is personal preference too. This is such a basic example, but if I had a lot more data and I had demographics and things like that, yeah, maybe doing it in the back end would make sense. But then again, I also think that adding those additional elements makes it a little harder to do it in the ETL job as well, right? Because what if you want to filter, those values could change. So I think it really just depends on what your data is and how complex it is. That would be my answer.
Right. Cool. Well, I don't see any more questions, Lisa. So do we hand back to you at this point? Fantastic job, Heather. Well done.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, I was going to add a couple more things. So I do have one more mini slide just to jump back to, which is, how do we stay connected on this? So have you ever had, let's say, a business objects question you can't find the answer to no matter how much you Google it? Because I struggle with that. I don't know that I always know what I'm Googling, but I try. And then, or, even a really cool idea and you have no idea where to start. So that's where a lot of these ideas come from for me. So, this presentation and a lot of my presentations come about from somebody just reaching out to me and asking me a question. And I think, oh, that's really neat, or, that would be really cool, but how can we do it even better? So I wanted to give everyone my email address. It's right up there under me, just in case, you have any thoughts or questions or things like that. Please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you. And who knows, your question can turn into my next session. So that would be really cool. As we said at the beginning, we're Infosol, so that's us. And one other thing I kind of wanted to put out there was if you're, maybe you don't have a question, maybe you're not full of your ideas yet, but you're looking for inspiration. So we do also have the Speak BO community. And what is this? It's a community of your peers. And there's a lot of great presentations. And you might even see some of mine, such as the one that I did at the Speak BO experience last year on there, which is putting the bars into tables. So check us out there. And then also, if you want to learn more, we do have a really cool training offering, which is webbylikeapro.com. So check that out as well. And that's all. I just wanted to add those couple of things because, again, I'd love to hear from everybody. And like I said, it's where I get my inspiration. So
you guys have done well. I've got a few questions for you guys. You guys are experts in what you do today in terms of Webi. And we were talking earlier around user adoption. So that's really, it's a fundamental element, when you do, analytics, because at the end is you want to make sure that you get the right information, it's shared properly, and you want to make sure that people it's designed for are really using them because there are a lot of budgets behind a lot of investments. in terms of user adoption, do you have some recommendations on how can the user adoption be increased within organizations? Because that's always a bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the key to that is training. At the end of the day, if people understood the capabilities of what is now possible in Web Intelligence 4.2, I think they would be more than surprised. About a year or so ago, a year and a half ago, we decided to rewrite all of our Web Intelligence courses as if the very first tool you ever picked up was Webby 4.2. So instead of trying to teach people, okay, now you've got these features added onto these, and so forth, let's try and take brand new people who've never seen the product before and show them the capabilities of the new, things. I mean, things like shared elements, for example, are just absolutely tremendous. And with shared elements, you can drag and drop and build reports without ever having to write any code or anything like that. And so I think there's a lot of capabilities. When you look at the graphical capabilities now, building dashboards in Web Intelligence, we've actually built a whole course around just building dashboards in Web Intelligence. And you look at third-party products like the Need for Viz, add-on capabilities for adding, Google Maps and all sorts of fantastic, 3D graphs and charts into your Web Intelligence now. There isn't anything you can do. We've actually built and created Tableau dashboards in Web Intelligence, recreated them in Web Intelligence, and nobody could tell the difference in terms of the look and feel. So, I think that is what is missing, so to speak. And we work with a lot of clients who only, touch the edge and use maybe 10 to 15% of the capabilities of Web Intelligence without realizing all of the amazing things it can do. Heather, do you want to add anything to that?
That was pretty comprehensive, Paul. But I would definitely agree with you. Like I said, I never thought I would build a box of crayons in Webi, right? But it's really cool. And I think it just takes kind of sparking the imagination and thinking outside the box too, because just because it does X, Y, and Z doesn't mean you can't even expand upon that. And that's where, I think you can really build some fabulous things. So there's a lot of, like I said, flexibility, I think, is the versatility. Those two words are ones I use a lot interchangeably when I talk about Webi is, I think people just see tables and it's really not just that. It's got so much more now. So yeah, I would agree with you. Just touching the surface.
We cannot agree more, than what you said. It's clear, and Paul, it's very true right now. You've got lots of new people using BobJ, using Webi. And, it's very important for us, for you, and you guys have done a very good job over the years on training the community. You've been really well known for that over the, so many years doing that. And it's just, it's so important just to bring that knowledge to the community so that the tool they have, they understand how to use it. And frankly, it's very easy to be using Webi. You don't need to be a genius around that. And in terms of the training that you guys offer, so you've got like a menu for training. How does that work?
People can just go to our website that you can see there, the webbylikeapro.com. You can go directly there, or you can go to the Infosol website and click on training and business objects training, and you'll see all of the courses we offer. Out of interest, the most popular course we teach today, is called Using Web Intelligence 4.2 Like a Pro. And that is the course that was built.
There it is.
Right. That is the course that was built specifically for, this is how you would use Webi today in 4.2, not how you used to use it or anything like that. So, so that's where people can find out information. Absolutely.
And it's rather affordable. That's a great thing. That typically works out very well within the training budgets that people have. I've got another question for you. I know we spoke a little bit about it earlier. When is the next IBIS?
Next IBIS is coming up June 14th to the 16th. Yes, thanks for mentioning that, Bruno. I mean, this is a fantastic educational event. And we run courses and we run all sorts of sessions, just like the one you saw Heather do just now throughout that. It looks like this year it'll probably be a hybrid event. So it will be both in person and virtual at the same time. So we will be gathering there in California. If the people for the Grammys can do it, I suppose there's no excuse. There's no excuse why we can't be there as well. So, and we will be dressed just as smartly as those people were as well.
Even better.
Even better.
And frankly, the way things are going, that there's a fair chance actually you might be able to have people in person come, and we'll see how it goes. But it's definitely going the right way, so that would be very, very nice, and that would be excellent news for everyone. So I'm sure we're all humans, and we all need contact with other people, real contact. Doing over Zoom or whatever solution is. It's kind of fun at first, but it's not the real thing. So
definitely. I would also add, I'm considering doing the next part of this course at IBIS. So, if you're interested in what you saw today and you want to see more, come on out and see us.
Yeah.
Over at IBIS, are there any specific, what will be the most popular sessions you think, Paul? What's your best guess, Paul?
Well, we run simultaneous tracks. So we run, the BI reporting track, which is Web Intelligence and Crystal, and that one always is packed. And then we run a Business Objects Administration track as well. And people on the administration side will tend to gravitate, towards that. And we also will put the universe design modules inside the administration track as well. So that one's also, equally popular. We do a dashboards and data visualization track, as well. And we do a limitless business intelligence track, which is a whole bunch of, customer case study after customer case study, new and innovative ways that people are using business objects in their environments and creating, cool and interesting solutions. So those are the ones that people really tend to gravitate towards. We also hold training courses both before and after IBIS, and these are hands-on 1 day and 2 day training courses, and those are also incredibly popular as well. So lots to see and do there, without a doubt.
I had one question, because we had a question around that this morning, Paul, and I know you got a tool to do this. What do you have to offer, just in a few words? We got 2-3 more minutes left. What can you offer for people that've got Excelsius?
Yes.
Excelsius did come up, didn't it?
I suppose the first thing I say is I offer my condolences, because it won't run anymore. It won't run anymore because of Microsoft and Adobe, conspiring to kind of stop it altogether. But yes, we have a tool called Squirrel 365, which was built on the same premise of Excelsius. So it's a no-code, low-code tool that allows you to be able to, build data visualizations, dashboards, and value calculators, and even end-to-end BI applications from a spreadsheet type model. And data can be fed into that spreadsheet, and it has a direct connect using a Business Intelligence Web Services connector straight into Business Objects. And so what we've been able to do as a result of that is take all these customers that had Excelsius dashboards and literally, seamlessly migrate them to Squirrel, and their dashboards can look exactly the same. Obviously, there's a better UI, but for expediency's sake, we saved quite a few customers from a lot of cost and a lot of heartache. And so, it's turning out to be quite intriguing as well. I mean, we have customers like Salesforce who use Squirrel, and you kind of scratch your head and say, well, you own Tableau, so why would you use a dashboarding tool like Squirrel, right? But, to do the same thing in Tableau would have taken a lot of work, and it wasn't possible. And Squirrel has write-back capabilities and things like this, which Tableau doesn't have. So it was a great fit for companies like them as well. So thanks for letting us talk about that, Bruno.
No worries. It's overall the goal is to help the community out, and this is that's a real issue. Whether we want to admit it or not, and we have to help people. So that's why we did. Anyway,
we got one last question down here too, Bruno.
If you want, if not, I think, well, you know what? Probably let's skip it because I think Chris just started this quiz. So overall,
okay.
Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great job, Heather.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You were the only one with a real Irish name today.
I know.
It's true. That's kind of cool. So
yes, that is my real
that meant cloud.
Yeah.
So Neil, which I had no clue about. So overall, in terms of the game, well, we can actually maybe answer the question, but just for the quiz. So overall, go on www.kahoot.it. So KAHOOT.it. Put in your name, and then we're going to start a quiz, and then you need to answer quickly to earn the Amazon gift cards. Make sure you've got the right answer. So while people connect, you want to take the last question, Paul, just very briefly? Well, Paul is gone, so well.
Is it a question I may know?
To add to a calculation question, is it done in Webi that can be migrated to SAC, or you'll need to redo VS backend, perhaps won't need redevelopment? It shows on the screen, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah, all I see is the screen I'm sharing. How do I flip to that?
Yeah, okay.
It's fine. We can probably take that because I'm just afraid.
Yeah, we can take it offline and get back to that person.
So guys, anyway, please register that, and then we're going to start the first. The first quiz question. So I don't, Chris, can you show the first quiz question while people are still connecting? And by the way, the code is 642-285. That's on it. Where's the
question?
What's the question?
What's the question?
Okay, well, Chris just tells me that he still wants to wait a little bit because it's going to block people registering. So let's give you another minute so that you guys register.
Okay.
And Heather, again, your session really rocked. I think it was very enjoyable. You brought a lot of color, except next time.
I'm not Irish, so I couldn't do the green. So I did wear a green shirt.
I've noticed.
That's all I have.
And I can't wait to see the box of chocolates, Bruno. It's going to be for you. It's my gift for you from Heather.
Oh, that's great. That'll be next year.
We've got the first question. So how many people registered to today's event? So, just go quickly, put the answers.
300, 500, 1,000, 700.
300, 500, 700, 1,000. I know we're quite a few to join. So come on, who did put one? I want to know who that is. So it's actually pretty good because people are always surprised that we can still move that many people in the community. It's huge to have 1,000 people on an event like this. So that's really great. So of course the answer is 1,000. So Darren, you knocked it. Just good job. Very good job. So let's go for the second quiz. Which of the following is true when comparing in-place vs side-by-side upgrades?
Oh, dear.
Okay, so installing 4.3 on top of 4X doesn't require extra work. Side-by-side means you can take your time and test as much as you want. in place is easy, as you can easily test your production content before and after. Side by side is great, as you don't need new servers or reconfigure anything. So, by the way, we've got an article on that, and that's always a very passionate debate. Yeah, of course, the answer is side by side means you can take your time and test as much as you want. And I'm just always curious to know who answered the other question. So we thought we had done a good education work around that. So let's go for the full quiz. Which of the following is not a step when doing an upgrade? Okay, so call Pauline or Patrick. Okay, prepare.
Everyone always calls them.
Okay, what's the right answer?
Yeah, we got that one.
Patrick and Pauline, or eventually we could have added Heather or Rajesh as well. So it's always better to call them before, or to call Heather and Rajesh before. So that's Darren. Well done. Let's go for the fourth one.
How many Patricks are presenting today? How many Patricks are presenting today? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
So
we got 4.
Yeah. Again, we've cheated. Yeah. Because there was St. Patrick today.
I know, yeah.
That was the whole idea. So that was one extra Patrick.
Patrick.
We realized that after we realized that at least after we did the event, so that there were that many Patrick for today.
True or false? We now have solutions for Tableau. True or false? For all of you paying attention out there. All right. The answer is true. That is correct.
I think so, as Infosol, I believe.
Yep. Absolutely. Who's taking the lead? Still Steven. Steven's got it. And the last question. What is not true about 360 Suite? 360 Suite can analyze all your metadata. 360 Suite can automate regression testing. 360 Suite can bulk update Webi connections from UNV to UNX. 360 Suite can prepare your lunch. I wonder which one is not true about 360 Suite. Okay. All right.
These are fun questions from our marketing folks. So.
I know.
They've done a great job. So, Eric, you knocked it out. Darren, you're second. And who's the first? Come on, is it the first?
Steven.
I kind of expected that. So, Steven, by the way, if you want to send a snapshot of yourself and put it on LinkedIn, and we can push it, that'll be fun. And we'll get back in touch with you. So, and guys, thanks all for joining the quiz. Heather, thanks all
Thanks again, Heather.
Today.
Hi. Thank you so much.
The next session is going to start in 5 minutes. So it's going to be a round table with UCLA Health and then Vanderbilt around exchanging best practices using business objects in the healthcare industry, whether you use Epic or not. They're really great speakers. I think we'll have a lot of good time. So just stay tuned. And okay, I see that Larry is already on. I see that Dawn is on as well. So it's good to see you guys. I'm actually kind of disappointed, guys, because you guys don't have green. You're not wearing green today. What's going on?
I got the sage. Yeah, technically, it's a technicality.
Okay.
It's the California green, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's coastal sage, so
yes,
qualifies.
And Larry's wearing green too.
Yeah.
Well, Larry was Air Force before, so he was never
okay.
Green. He was
Okay, now you messed up. I was Army. Army is green. Olive drab.
Olive drab, yes.
I was Air Force.
See, that's blue, man. That's the wrong color.
That's right.
Always the right color when you need to. we could talk about that for some time, Larry. So overall, guys, it's great to have you on. And frankly, we were expecting to have, 2 other speakers, and things didn't work out as we wanted today. So we're really glad to have you on, and I know we're going to have a great time. It's like a first for us to do such a panel discussion. The reason we wanted to have this discussion today is that we've got lots of healthcare customer. That's one thing, but the main reason is today, a lot of hospitals, a lot of healthcare providers are using business objects and are using Epic as well. And the idea was, well, can you explain us what you guys are doing today with business objects? What are the good practices? And then maybe have some words around Epic, because there are a lot of concerns, whether, in terms of universe support. And we've known both of you for years, and we've clearly recognized that you're extremely knowledgeable. Larry, accept that you were not in the Air Force, but I accept that. Well, first of all, can you guys introduce yourself, and then I'll pass it to Pauline to moderate as well.
Yeah, so let's first of all let's start with Don. Don is from UCLA Health. He's a BI administrator. So Don, why don't you start and introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, sure. So welcome, everyone. Just let me give you just a brief snapshot of UCLA Health. What is that? It's officially UCLA Center for Health Sciences. We call it UCLA Health around here. It encompasses nearly all the university's patient care, clinical education, and research programs and facilities. So just a quick rundown of that. That's primarily Ronald Reagan Medical Center, which it's internationally recognized. We get about 380,000 patients per year for patient care, located in West Los Angeles, just next to the university. We also have a sister hospital, UCLA Medical Center in Santa Monica, just a stone's throw away. It's a smaller 266-bed academic medical center. It's been around since 1926, and it's just been pretty much providing patient-oriented care throughout the years. But we have a handful of other facilities too that kind of cover it. Like, for example, we have Stuart and Linda Resnick Neuropsychiatric Hospital. We have UCLA Mattel Children's Hospital, all in the same Westwood location. And in addition, we have the Medical Plaza, the Medical Group, and then all the education and research. So that would be like School of Dentistry, School of Medicine, School of Nursing, and School of Public Health. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Let me just say something briefly about our IT environment, because that's what we're really here for, right? So no surprise, we have an SAP BusinessObjects implementation. And we have about a little over 1,500 users. And Pauline, I should ask you, do you want me to just talk about the IT environment now, or do we punt that for later in the discussion?
Yeah, you can mention that now, so everyone has a perspective of before we get started.
Yeah, just giving it like a pretty quick overview. Snapshot. Yeah. So we're really heavy in Crystal reports. So we have about 3,300 Crystal reports presently in our implementation. We got as compared to about 1,700 Webi reports. So Webi is definitely still there and makes a presence, but a lot of our IT lives revolve around Crystal. We have over 3,600 schedules that run on a regular basis. So to support that, we basically have a 3-node full service uniform cluster, meaning all the nodes are pretty much identical and they hide behind a load balancer. And mentioning Epic, so we have nightly Epic ETL jobs that are running, right? That's just the Epic thing. They have those jobs running to populate and keep up to date their reporting database, which is known as Clarity. And then we also have a myriad of other downstream data warehouses that are getting the trickle as well on a daily or weekly basis. So beyond business objects, the add-ins, we're definitely a heavy 360 product user. including 360 Plus and 360 Eyes. So we're using 360 Plus not only for standard backups, but something that we'll touch upon later today, which is it's really integral to our DR strategy. So that was really exciting to implement that, fraught with all the other challenges of any project, right? And then 360 Eyes we're using for both ad hoc and in-place solutions. It's just I always say that 360 Eyes provides just this wealth of untapped metadata for all kinds of potential possibilities. So the two things that we'll touch upon today are ETL dependency automation. It's a special solution that we created. And then there's also the EDM dashboard we're working on. It's kind of a newer effort. That's to just provide historical and real-time analytics for our own BI operations. So moving quickly beyond 360, we're also using InfoBurst. A lot of you will probably be familiar with that. It's an add-on product for SAP, providing support for real highly customizable report scheduling as well as bursting. And then we have Tableau, so over 32,000 users there on a three-node architecture. And last but not least, the new kid on the block is Power BI. So we're in the process of rolling that out right now. How many nodes? Only Microsoft knows, right? Because it's all cloud-based. We do have a double node data gateway on premise, so we can kind of get into that if those questions arise. Other than that, just wrapping it up, two projects that I've just mentioned briefly, which we'll probably drill into. Disaster recovery was a really big effort in the last couple of years, and then the ETL project, which we call ETLDA.
Okay.
But without further ado, yeah, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Yep, you are definitely busy. All those analytics solutions. Yeah. So yeah, and welcome, Larry. Larry, glad to see you in person. I know we always have seen everybody at some point during conferences, at least in person. Unfortunately, not this year, but hopefully soon. But nice to see you. But yeah, would you like to introduce yourself, Larry?
Sure. I'm with Vanderbilt University Medical Center, very long name. We use the term VUMC for short because it rolls off the tongue a little easier. We are, sometimes I say we're only 5 years old, but sometimes we are 100 and some years old. We split from the university in 2016. That's what brought me here to the medical center. And so now both entities are separate entities, although we're falling underneath a single board. From that standpoint, we're not fully divorced from each other, if you will. We're still tied together. But the VUMC is its own entity now, and we have done nothing but growth since we split. I'm assuming that's why we split. We are a Epic electronic health records system, which we also implemented 1 year after we split, which was interesting, of coming off of all of the old legacy systems and going on to Epic. We, unlike many, completely migrated to Epic in one move. They said normally people do that over 2 or 3 moves, but we did it in a single move, which was kind of interesting. We're located in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are the regional trauma center for all of Central Tennessee, Lower Kentucky, Upper Mississippi, and Upper Alabama. So our reach is very wide. We have, I think last count, 5 helicopters, 2 fixed wing planes. So we go bring people here and do all kinds of things like that. So we got close to 30,000 employees right now. That are located in our VUMC facilities, hospitals, and clinic. We have multiple hospitals and clinics, and we have about 150 external clinics that are located within Walgreens throughout the area to try to reach and get a little closer to the patients, so they don't have to all try to come into the hospitals from that standpoint. I'll just briefly talk about our IT shop. Our IT shop is split into 3 parts. We have what we call VUMC Enterprise Cybersecurity. That's all the guys that do all of the security and work from that standpoint across any organization within VUMC. And then we have what we call VUMC IT, and we have Health IT. VUMC IT, which I'm a part of VUMC IT, we manage all the infrastructure. Sometimes we call ourselves an on-premise cloud provider. We provide all hardware, software, storage, anything else along those lines. And my team specifically handles all of any Windows enterprise applications. So that includes BusinessObjects Tableau, SAS, the ID card system, the HR, Chronos, anything that touches the entire enterprise that they have decided to install the Windows version, my team gets that particular one. We have a sister team that's called it's our Linux application team. So if they choose the Linux version of something, it's that particular team that handles it as far as the enterprise is concerned. As far as BI is concerned, as I said, we have Tableau, we have BusinessObjects. I heard Don mention Power BI. They keep threatening me with Power BI, but we haven't seen it yet. We also have SAS because we are also a research medical center. And so we do a lot of statistics and things like that. And we have 2 or 3 research type products. SAS is one. There's also another one, but it's actually installed in Linux. And so I can't ever remember the name of that software. The Linux team handles that. And since our plate's full, we don't worry about anything we don't handle. We have 2 SAP BusinessObjects landscapes. When we had the first one before we got Epic, we call it Enterprise BI because all departments can use it. Anyone can use it. It's heavily used by our finance department, strategic and ops, supply, because they have a lot of reporting requirements from that standpoint. As we are a nonprofit entity, we have some fairly significant reported requirements in order to maintain that 501c3. And so BusinessObjects is our business intelligence system of truth. So anything that is designed to be truth comes out of, is produced inside of BusinessObjects. So when we started talking about moving Epic and we got into the discussions, I asked a few questions. They could never tell me how many reports Epic was going to run. So we just decided we would stand up a whole new landscape, and we installed a whole new landscape for Epic just to allow all of the Epic things to run. Since that time, we've determined that that was a good idea because of I'm going to say the non-standard way it's being implemented here. We installed one part of Epic that's called Hyperspace, and Hyperspace allows all of our medical staff. We have 1,000 doctors and 4,000 nurses, and they operate around the 24-hour clock. And so that Hyperspace is a single interface inside of Epic that's customized for their job. And they can then choose to generate any report ad hoc at any time when they want to. Now, it doesn't generate right away. They just sort of say, I want this report, and then it's scheduled, and that schedule runs every 15 minutes. And so sometimes it can have 15 reports, sometimes it can have 1,500 reports, all depending on how many people decided at that particular hour of the day to ask for some information. And so in Enterprise BI, we have about 6,000 users across all of the departments and there's about 24,000 or so Webi type reports and Crystal reports and other reports inside of that landscape. And that includes customization of the Epic reports that Epic doesn't provide. And so we've taken the Epic universes, brought them over into Enterprise BI, and then they customize those to interface them with our finance system and our HR system and everything else so that they can generate reports. As far as the Epic daily schedule reports, there's about 200 daily schedule reports that can take anything from 8 seconds to 45 minutes. I'm still unsure why someone needs a report that has that much data in it, but that's what we have. And so that's one of the reasons I'm kind of glad we separated that so that we can actually monitor that and make that work. There's about 6,000 Crystal report templates inside of that Epic system that those doctors and nurses can choose from to generate their reports. And so all in all, we have probably about 96 cores and probably about 128 gigs of RAM that's supporting all of those environments at any one time. One unique thing that we did here at the medical center is that they're very deliberate about change control. And so in order to do that with Epic, although we don't, we only handle test, development, and production environments. But from Epic's perspective, we have about 4 more other environments that they do before they actually roll any Epic change out. And so our systems will connect across multiple environments in order to allow them to change. We just determined that we didn't want to keep that many copies or that many landscapes running. And so we just have a way of switching as to which one it connects to from that standpoint. So that's really our environment from that standpoint.
Okay. Great, Larry. Thanks for the intro. And just like Don, you are very busy because of all the systems you support. So healthcare is obviously critical, making business objects very important. So disaster recovery is important. So I'll start with you, Don. Can you let us know what your disaster recovery strategy is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a few years back, maybe I said in the last 2 years, and that was probably the bulk of the implementation, but it started before then, right? The planning. And, the challenge was placed upon us, we need a disaster recover solution that will not keep us offline for very long, right? So these terms, disaster recovery versus high availability, can get murky in practice a little bit. Our first effort was actually to do something, very, very manual. Really, it was just like, okay, how do we back up the CMS? Okay, how do we have a backup of all the report contents, and then how do we just manually restore those? I mean, it's like traditional disaster recovery. And we brought it back to leadership, and they said, yeah, that's not disaster recovery, that's something else, which meant to them that what it really meant is they were really looking for more of a high availability solution. So what we finally settled on, well, actually, just the problem number 2 that we really ran into, because this is really, really important in terms of paving the way for our 360 solution, is it became pretty clear to us based on research, based on talking with SAP BusinessObjects, that it was going to be challenging to approach disaster recovery, at least based on our findings, at a database, more of a database content level, even if we weren't doing it manually. The question was, well, can we just automate what we would otherwise do manually? And, that basically boils down, you got your content, right? You got your buyer files, if you will, and then you got your database. The reason for that, as many people probably have found, I mean, this is kind of published by SAP as well, is there's just a real tight coupling that SAP makes between its installation and the actual computer, the machine, in other words, it's running on. So there's some hooks within the CMS that recognize that particular machine. And so not going into too much detail with alternate solutions, we did consider briefly a solution where we could basically bring up and instantaneously bring up an alternate environment that to SAP like identically looked like the same machine and servers and nodes and all that. But it wasn't a direction that we wanted to head. So that kind of all set stage. What we ended up doing then is we took a really, really strong look at 360 and specifically 360 plus, because we were already able to do a full backup of that environment. So what we ended up doing is really propping up 2 independently running parallel environments. So for all intents and purposes, it's almost like having a prod and a test environment. They run completely independently. They're installed completely independently. But the secret sauce is 360 plus. We're basically leveraging their backup and restore features in order to keep those environments completely in sync. So we basically have backup restore jobs running twice per day at this point that keep those environments in sync. But of course, they're not test and prod. What they are is prod and DR, if you will. So there's two totally independent data centers that are being kept in sync in terms of content. And then what we do during disaster recovery is we just basically, if you will, flip the switch. So our load balancer essentially points from one to the other. There is some lifting that we have to do just to ensure, because 360 gets us about 95% of the way there. There are some kind of maintenance tasks that we have to accomplish, but it was enough. It was within tolerance so that that we could just switch between those two environments in the event of a disaster. So we, as far as once we got that implemented, our policy, kind of our maintenance policy, is we actually manually force a cutover from one environment to the other about once or twice a year, just to ensure everything is working as expected. So that's kind of it at a high level. I kind of want to just take a breath and see if, you know, we want to have input or, you know, questions. Or
I was just curious. So how long, when you do that switch over, how long does it take? Is it an hour? Is it, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I should have the stats on that. Let's just say it's less than. No, it's good. It's like, oh yeah, well, did it achieve the measurable outcome or not, right? So it's less. Let's just say it's less than 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes we're kind of correlating cutovers with other efforts. So, you know, our exact, you know, statistic gets muddled by that. But yeah, it's basically less than 2 hours is our tolerance. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, there's been times that in less than an hour. We're making improvements too. So there used to be some maintenance around scheduling cleanup that I might just punt to maybe the Q&A session, but we're automating that process too, just now as we speak. So we're able to come back up online even more quickly than before.
Okay.
For the audience, just feel free to ask questions, you know, in the chat box, and then we'll do our best to answer at the end. And also, one thing we'd be curious to know is what business object version you guys are on. If you're using Epic behind the scene, if you're using Kronos, just if you can just put some comments around your environment, you know, in the chat box, that would be nice. Pauline?
Okay. Yeah, so let's talk to Larry then. Yeah, since we're on the topic of disaster recovery, can you tell me, do you have a DR plan as well for your Epic environment?
Yes, we have a DR plan for both environments, for our enterprise BI and our Epic BI. They're separate, but we have two VUMC managed data centers. So we call them on-premise. They're not necessarily on the campus. We have one that's on the campus, and then we have another that is geographically dispersed so that, you know, to protect against a single accident happening. We call them DC1 and DC2. Our DC3 is a virtual data center where we use I think it's a platform as a service from a virtual cloud vendor from that standpoint, so that we are actually running 3 different, I call them live versions of BusinessObjects. So it's installed in 3 places. They're all live, online, and up and running all the time. And so we use a load balancer, a virtual load balancer, to point at what is the current production system from that standpoint. And that load balancer knows about all 3 data centers. And so we can control, our team can control which of those data centers is actually the live one. we use our enterprise job scheduler, and I heard Don mention how to automate things. We took the actual scheduling of the jobs that we did and took it outside of business objects, and it's configured inside 360, but the actual enterprise job scheduler, we use StoneBranch, is the thing that actually triggers any of those jobs. And so that way we're able to basically tell StoneBranch what we want to happen. We want DC1 to be primary, and we want DC2 and DC3 to be secondary, or vice versa. And so it knows when we make that change what to do, which job to call, and which one we're supposed to be synchronizing from to. We synchronize all of our business objects. We do not go what we call system to system. We go system out to a file location with the buyer files, and then we bring in those files from that into wherever we're going. And that allows us, again, that if anything goes wrong along the ways, we can always go back and reverse and go back. I think I mentioned before that our change management rules requires us to do that, and that we're not allowed to go system to system because they want a defined log of the export. They want a defined log of the import. And so it allows us to do that. We synchronize right now daily, but we test, and our test says that we can shorten that down to hourly if necessary, because we've got it, I don't know if honed, if that's the right word, that we can do that. We just decided not to, because we found that people are making mistakes. And so sometimes we can push something that they didn't want to go someplace. And so we just do it at night when they're supposed to be finished and not touching anything. But if there ever came a point where they said shorten that down to 4 times a day or whatever, they can give us any kind of instructions that they want. For the actual instances, we actually use the 360 plus rollback feature if that's necessary, but for the most part, it's never necessary because the published instances are supposed to be written out to a shared location where they can do a little bit more control over who can see it from that standpoint. We do some type of, I call it blast or multiple addressed things, but that's typically when somebody is actually responsible for doing something with the report. It's not that they're reading it. They have a task to do once they receive that port that may drive something else. And again, I said we have these running on both landscapes. And so there's a whole lot of jobs running inside of StoneBranch. And so if you would, and StoneBranch itself has multiple versions because of that. From that standpoint, we don't do ETL as far as the data for like Clarity Clone and I mean for Clarity, Caboodle, and the databases inside of Epic. What we have is we have a cloning process, in that what we have that data that's being written is actually being simultaneously written into a clone, which is a read-only copy of that same data, and it allows us to scale it so that as the jobs or the requirements or the for reading that data grows, they're not really hitting the production system that's directly connected to Epic. They're actually hitting a clone copy of that database, and we can just kind of add RAM, add whatever we want to do on there, because since it's not production, we don't have that same change management thing before we can actually add anything. And so we just keep the actual production databases matched to what Epic provides in their instructions from that standpoint.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Very interesting. So Don, last time we talked, you were doing something really cool with AI, and you always have something innovative that you're working on in Business Objects. Can you tell us about a recent project that you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. But first, Larry, you piqued my curiosity. I want to know more about StoneBranch.
Oh yeah. Now, yeah. Don needs another tool to add to his infrastructure.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're doing our best. I mean, we're on a journey like every other healthcare system to try to keep keep the lights on, attend to daily operations, while at the same time still trying to look for opportunities for innovation. So we're always kind of doing that balancing act. So one of the things, though, that we did in the last year is it's called ETLDA. It's ETL dependency automation, but it really, maybe the friendly term is smart scheduling. So just to kind of lay out the problem statement, what was happening on a periodic basis, more often than we'd want it to, honestly, is where an ETL job that's, we have these nightly jobs going all the time, right? And you'd all of a sudden have an ETL job fail, or it would just delay, right? The problem is you have downstream impact for that, right? Because if you have daily schedules running against your reports that are expecting up-to-date information, the last thing you want is a table not up to date, or worse, the table is somehow blank or not corrupted, but the data itself is not accurate, right? Then you have a data quality issue. So what would occur under these circumstances is the BI administration team would get a phone call, sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning, and then there would be a mad dash scramble. And that's where the problem actually began. I mean, it was problem enough that we'd be early morning hours trying to scramble to fix the problem. But if anyone's familiar with ETL jobs, if you have more than one, which normally you will, the question becomes, okay, we have one ETL job among many, possibly dozens. Where is the actual impact? So what we were doing for a while is we would literally put a halt on all schedules across the board until that ETL issue got resolved. So now you're having a new problem, right? The new problem is that you are holding up delivery of service, right, to people, to users and customers throughout your healthcare system that may be completely unnecessary, right? Because they're not even impacted. So that's what really gave birth to this idea of ETL dependency automation. What we basically did, what began actually as a script, has grown into more of what I would call, I mean, you could call it a script on steroids, I guess, but it's really a full-blown, almost a framework. Where, and I see that we kind of have a diagram up here. So in the heart of it is the script. What the script's job is basically to monitor on a moment-by-moment basis ETL status. And it does so by pulling on the ETL job tables that, that the database provides. They're keeping track of all this stuff digitally, right? So the moment that a delay is encountered, the script basically responds immediately and says, okay, which tables does this ETL job affect? Okay, now that we know this, which reports depend on those tables? All right, now we know which reports are affected. So it basically places those reports more virtually than actually in a pause state, because reports don't get paused, right? It's always their jobs that get paused, the schedules that get paused, right? But we basically virtually mark those reports as paused. And then what it does is it'll basically reach out to business objects. That was our other challenge, is we kind of need to know what's going on in the business objects environment. Namely, well, what are the schedules that are even up for running this morning, right? You could have 3,000 schedules, but you don't want to pause all schedules when maybe there's only 200 running today, right? So we have a small web service that we put in place that takes advantage of BusinessObjects SDK. It's a pretty small code, basically, but it's powerful because it's able to basically interrogate really simple questions. Like, most people are familiar with Query Builder. Think Query Builder, but with a web service on top of it. So that's just great, because now the script can reach out and ask BusinessObjects basic questions like, how many schedules do we have upcoming today? How many schedules do we have upcoming for these particular reports that we care about? So there's this bilateral communication between SAP BusinessObjects. The script essentially uses that to say, okay, we know which reports are affected. Let's find out what schedules are scheduled for today for those reports. Now we're going to ask the probably equally important question, just because they're scheduled for today, what's scheduled in the next hour? Because really, if the ETL is delayed for now, but is fine within an hour, we don't want to start pausing things. So it uses all that information, and it basically will systematically monitor business objects at that point and say, okay, you're getting too close. We're actually going to pause you until we get this ETL schedule resolved. And that's essentially how it works. And then, of course, there's the other side of it, right? Once you have any kind of pause actions taking place, you want to make sure those schedules get unpaused, right? So, so it'll continue to monitor the ETL status. And as soon as the ETL says, hey, I'm complete, then it can reach back out to business objects and say, okay, you can release those schedules now. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And so what that guarantees is data quality, but takes a more granular automated approach to pinpointing the delivery of service so that not all of our scheduled jobs are held up on a daily basis.
Yep.
So that's kind of it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a good way to avoid users finding out there's no data or they're getting partial results, that kind of thing. Yeah, very, very cool solution. Okay, so Larry, about regulatory needs. Are there any regulatory needs you have regarding backups and retention at Vanderbilt? Regarding
yes, there are. I want to say something right here for Don, because he made a statement at the end, at the beginning, where he wanted to know about Stone Branch. Stone Branch is it's a job scheduler that's independent of any system that's out there. You can make it talk to anything that's out there. It has agents that you can put on any server that you have running. So you can put it on a Linux server, you can put it on a Windows server, and things like that. The reason that we moved to Stone Branch is that our ETL jobs were already over in Stone Branch. So all of the ETL jobs were already being scheduled in Stone Branch. And so we kind of came over and say, well, let's find out what all the jobs are running, because we know which jobs need to finish before we need to run. And so then we just got with the team that's responsible for those jobs, and they gave us the ability to set a dependency of our jobs on theirs. And so rather than have it being in the business objects instance manager, it's a defined job inside of 360 that I trigger from Stone Branch. And so there's nothing over there scheduled to run. I'm just watching the ETL job inside of Stone Branch. And when the job in Stone Branch is finished, then I say, okay, now go ahead and run. And then it also allows me then to trigger, like you said, if we know that people want that thing to be ready at 7 o'clock, at about 6:45, 6:50, if that thing still hasn't finished over there, I can now trigger through another system, and it sends out an incident that then notifies users, this information is not available, you will get it later. It's just some default stuff that's out there. And then as soon as the job run, it knows it's already sent that incident out. And so when it then runs, it sends an update to the incident to say, okay, all data is now available. You can go ahead and do whatever you're supposed to do. It's just some standard text that we have in there. But because they already had the ETL jobs in Stone Branch, it was easy for us to plug in where we wanted to plug in and understand things that we're doing. And without that, we would have probably been doing something just like what you're doing, because that was the only option that we had if we were going to use the instance manager and everything else, was to know all of that. So our stuff is in Stone Branch because, again, it's in that whole change management thing that they had, and they had to go through it, and they got to document everything that happened. So they have to do the export, then they have to test the export. Now, this is somebody else's job, it's not mine. And then once the data is good, then they can do the import, because there's no direct feeds that can happen inside of us. And that kind of feeds into what Pauline just asked me. We're governed by regulations as a hospital. We're governed by so many regulations. Sometimes I lose track of them. Of course, as a hospital, we're governed by HIPAA, which of course all medical centers are governed by HIPAA, but that's really just protecting the personal health record information and things like that. because we are a research hospital and we get data from various places, we also inherit the regulations that come with the data. So if we get data from the National Institute of Health, they say how we have to keep it. So now we have their regulation. We also get data from, I know from at least Stanford Medical Center and a couple of other large ones that are out there. And when we get their data, we now have to we have to kind of integrate the governing that they do. So we are so governed that our data backup and retention is just like we're not getting rid of anything for 20 years, because it's just we were trying to do the individual regulations, and so finally we just said, let's just pick a time that everybody fits in. And that's what the executive says. So we keep everything for 20 years. So of course our storage team got a whole lot of money to add a whole lot of more storage, so there was a whole bunch of things that cascaded from that. But we use the 360 Plus to back everything up. And then in that backup location, we use a vendor supply retention for long-term storage. So basically they are trimming that based on a time we give them, typically 3 years. And then they move that out to another location that's in the cloud. But then the storage team, based on my request, I can say, go bring back in, however much that I need to bring back into my storage to my backup location. And once I do that, of course, I can now see it inside of 360, and I can actually restore anything from that standpoint. So rather than being sort of a export it out and keep it in a retention place and now figure out, well, what report did it come from, or what, it's really still all a part of my business object environment from that standpoint. So I see everything as various instances that I have that's out there. Now, where this became a challenge, and I'll just say this, is that we had to learn how 360 Plus named everything from backups. Because since it was named according to the cluster, and I'll just say this here, we had to be very careful about how we define our cluster names. Because if you change your cluster name and you get ready to back up, you get to start again and back everything up all over again. So I just wanted to say that, and Pauline helped us understand, okay, we're not going to keep creating cluster names. We're going to define the cluster names. And once we have them all defined, those are the only names we're going to ever use from that standpoint, if ever in life, so that we don't have to start back over and back everything up again. And so, I kind of say that here just because if somebody is doing this and they have a very large environment like what we had 15 years worth of business objects things. And when we first did this, we changed the cluster name, and we had 2 very, very, very long initial backup periods. And so we learned not to do that again, from that standpoint. So we only did that one time. And so 360 has allowed us to do backups that do not use the SAP type of backup. Everything is backed up using bar files based on dates and changes and times from that standpoint. And so it has made life very easy. One thing I forgot to say at the beginning is we went through about a 6-month proof of concept trial period. And we were having this little issue because I wanted to buy so many of the 360 software applications that the cost got fairly large. And so the challenge came to me, why do you need to buy all of this stuff? Well, before I got here, the company had, when they went from, what was it, Business Objects, was it 3.1 or something to the 4.0 platform, and they had hired a consultant to come in to help them do that because they didn't know how to do it. So they just hired a consultant to come in. Well, I had all of that information of how much they paid them and how long it took and all, how much downtime they had and all of those other things. And I told them, I said, well, I believe that I can do all of the upgrades and things like that without any use of another contractor. So I had their interest then at that particular point, and that they were already paying me. So, okay, well, if you can do this, then that's sounding good. But how do you know it works? Well, before I could actually write that up, one of our BI senior analysts deleted all development reports. And they sent me an email and said, we don't have anything in our reports folder. And I mean, what do you mean you don't have anything in your report folder? So I go and I log in, and sure enough, there is nothing in there. I don't know how they did it to this day. I can't tell you. I don't know what they did. But there are administrators in there because they are administering and setting up permissions and all of that, access levels and all of that. And so they had the ability to do it. And apparently somebody clicked something, whatever he clicked, it deleted all of them. So I called Pauline. Pauline, can I restore using 360? We were still in proof of concept. We were not, I still had a trial version and everything. She walked me through it, and I put it back up maybe like 45 minutes. All questions went away. They said, okay, approve that purchase. And since that time, they haven't asked any more questions about when I want to buy something from GB & Smith, because it just proved what I was trying to tell them we could do. But of course, we had never done it. And so it was just one of those things. So I wanted to kind of put that story out there, because sometimes it's a little challenging, because I think I have all products except for 3. And so we're still talking about those 3 right now.
Yeah, sometimes you don't realize the value until you actually experience it, right? Yeah.
Larry, are you, and probably, are you saying that Pauline or Yasmina, they're helping customers out, or is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is my developers now all know Pauline's name. And anytime I'm running into a problem, they ask me, can we get Pauline on the phone and talk to her? So I'm thinking that they actually like GB & Smith from that standpoint. They don't ask me about calling SAP or anybody else to get on the phone, but Pauline, they know her name.
On the backup, we still argue with people, just trying to explain them, the power of what we do. And your story actually has been great. It's a great story to share, because it's real.
Well, if you think about it, you got to think now, this is the development environment. So this is all the reports based on everything that they're working on up until this time. So that would have meant that they would have had to try to pull them all back from test or back from prod in order to get started all over, but would not give them the ones that they have like in draft and things like
updates,
that. So they would have been in pretty dire straits at that particular point in time as the developers, because it's all the projects that they're working on. It's one thing if you lose prod, because those are just production reports, but developers typically have a whole lot of stuff that's nowhere else, except for in the development environment. And so they were panicking a little bit.
Right. That's a lot of lost work for sure. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Looks like we have a question from Summit. Yeah, it looks like it's for Don. So he's asking your solution for your ETL-DA solution. He's wondering, he just wanted to understand what the ETL solution you're using. And he said ETL has a scripting capability that you can use flat file-based events in BusinessObjects.
Yeah, so if I understand the question, well, first of all, just taking it on face value, the ETL solution itself, like the actual technology we're using to actually execute and run, it's a myriad. It's not my strong suit. It's handled by another team. So part of it is handled by Caboodle. We're also using some limited SSIS packages. I'm not quite sure what the name of the ETL engine that is used de facto by Epic. I believe it exists. I just don't know what that name. So I'm probably not going to be as helpful there. But you're right. I mean, what I'm hearing in the question is there's a push and a pull type of decision that you can make with this. If the ETL technology that you're using has the ability to meet the requirements that I described, then you could definitely start from that end and kind of monitor and manage like downstream. For example, if your ETL technology not only has the ability to detect, monitor, report, and notify the status of the ETL, but actually has the ability to take action, and in this case, it would literally be reaching out to the business objects environment, communicating to that environment, and having the knowledge and ability to pinpoint the exact schedules affected and take actions accordingly, yeah, then you could definitely have it in that direction. For us, it just seemed to make equal, if not better sense, to have a centralized monitoring system that was reaching out, basically just checking status, and then then taking the appropriate action. It provides a good integration point for us because it also allows us to scale and expand beyond a particular ETL technology. For example, this gives us the ability to handle multiple ETL or even multiple job dependencies throughout our organization if necessary, right? So right now it's a business objects type of thing, but we can easily extend that to downstream info burst jobs, but even upstream, we can monitor other things that SQL Server replication, for example, that may use its own ETL technology. So hopefully that helps kind of provide feedback and answer the question. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it looks like we don't have any other questions. You guys were so thorough. We don't have anybody asking any questions. Yeah, is there anything else that either of you would like to share, or anything that came up? I mean,
yeah, well, one of the things that Larry, that you shared too, just in terms of the challenges faced, I mean, with all our solutions and implementations, there's always the learning curve, and certainly with disaster recovery, like the lessons learned in terms of how to fine-tune use of whatever we're using under the hood, right? Whether it's 360 or something else. Yeah, there was just a wealth of information that we came back with. One thing on the DR strategy in terms of the automatic syncing, Pauline, that you and I have discussed, is we did find that there was just one little Achilles heel, and that is schedules. If a schedule was rescheduled, which basically SAP interprets as a deletion and then a recreation, you can't back up a deletion. So what we found in the DR sync environment is a kind of an accumulation of kind of deprecated schedules. So we handled that with basically a script to clean that up. It was actually the simplest script in the world, but that was one of the lessons that we learned. A really small one, really, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. ETL has been a different world. The trend of site reliability engineering is starting to kind of emerge. It's basically the whole idea of automating what otherwise would be a manual process. So automation has been, of course, around for a long time. But in that regard, I think the ETLDA solution really allowed us to kind of bump up against things and ensure that we were handling them in the correct way. So I can really relate to Larry when you're just talking about those type of issues in particular. It's like we're constantly trying to refine the tool set, right, and the technologies that we have in place to reflect that. So I'd be happy to discuss any of those lessons learned, but in the absence of a question, I'll refrain, at least for now.
Well, Don, now you said something that I'm very interested in, because that whole thing of something got deleted and we're going between live systems and trying to determine how to now take out what is no longer there, because that has been one issue that we've had. It creates a number of let's say errors, and what we found it creates a number of errors or warnings in the backup process from that standpoint. And so typically once we get the logs, it tells us that there was a warning, it lets us know, and then we go in and we just kind of clean up those, what's those called?
You're talking about the unbound documents, the failed,
Unbound documents,
yeah,
yeah. And so we
failed
haven't
reports.
got that automated yet. I'm very interested in that script that you're talking about, if somehow that can automate that process, because we our informatics vice president of health IT has decided that rather than do in the Epic environment, this is only in the Epic environment, in our enterprise BI environment, we do the same thing. Once every 2 years, you have to do a DR test. And basically what we do is we fail over to our DR, one of our DR facilities, and we have to run there for a specified time. It's very unique to the businesses from that standpoint. For business objects, of course, it's 1 week. For some other businesses, it's 1 day, and it has to do with when we do the business impact analysis. When they do that BIA, they determine, how much data you say that you can do manually, and based on whatever you say, if you say I can do 7 days worth of data, that means we're going to have to run over there for 7 days. And so the health IT vice president of informatics decided he didn't like that. He thought that was too long. And so for our Epic environment, we fail over every 6 months, and we run 6 months in the other data center, and then we fail back for 6 months. Well, that accumulates quite a bit of unbound documents when you do that, because they're making changes and things like that. And I do not have that automated. I have not yet figured out how to do that. So there's something that you can share. I would be very happy to see that.
Yeah. And it's funny with these kind of decision points. I mean, the ETLDA solution is obviously heavy in scripting, but we try to be as intentional as possible in terms of only pulling the script lever when we need to. Case in point, recent discussion with my team lead is, okay, in this instance, it was actually scheduling, cleaning up schedules between the environments, right? His point was, maybe instead of cleaning up these schedules, is there a way to run schedules outside of business objects, right? I mean, can we lift that whole job scheduling? That's why Stone Branch kind of piqued my interest. It's like, if we can move that, not only are upgrades much, much easier, but also this synchronization of objects, at least in this instance. So we're constantly weighing those decisions, right? Sometimes the best solution is not the scripting solution. It is the right tool, or at least the right implementation of the solution, right? So we're constantly trying to make those decisions. Yeah.
Well, the one adjustment that I made here, that did reduce it to a much smaller volume, was that I decided to have 2 different cluster names for my prod and my DR. And then what happens is, regardless which one is live, they are still all synchronizing and backing up. So if they make a change in the live one, it's going to synchronize to the non-live, and then that night the non-live is going to back up. So in quote theory, if all goes well, everything will stay in sync. Where the problem comes is that in Epic, for anyone that has Epic, the authoring of the Crystal Report templates is done in an Epic software package. And so when they author that, I have zero control over what they name it or how they define the folder they're supposed to go in and things like that. And everything is dependent on them following a standard practice. Because when they push that or publish that, there's some mistakes that they can make over there that causes duplicate documents on the business object side. Because you have folders, and then you have subfolders, and then you have subfolders of subfolders. Well, if they do something incorrectly, then it actually creates another folder, because Business Objects takes the character value that they thought meant go into a subfolder. And it says, oh no, that's just a character. I'm just going to add that to the name of the folder. So you go over there and you find all of these duplicate looking things over there, and then trying to figure out which one is the most recent one or correcting it is almost impossible from that authoring tool that they have. It would probably break a whole lot of things if they tried to do it. So we're kind of stuck with their mistakes. And that's what I can't seem to get my hands around. And what I'd like to do is to be able to understand, okay, this is actually the same document. It's just sitting in here. Which one is old and which one is new?
Right.
And then I'd like to just get rid of the old one, because it's never going to get used again. Because when they author it over there, it tells the hyperspace client, here is where this document is. It no longer knows anything about the one that was created before. And so it's unbound, but unbound from an Epic perspective, not from a Business Objects perspective. And so it's just now something sitting out there that's never going to get used because it's now disconnected from Epic.
From hyperspace, yeah.
Yeah, from hyperspace. So that's where I say, if you got some other kind of script then which we probably can take and modify, and because I know what to do if I had a script to go in and clean it up, but I don't have the script to actually execute. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, would be happy to collaborate. That'd be great.
Okay. And you see, this type of conversation, that was, one of the intent of the session of today, because both of you, you're on the panel because we've known you guys are super knowledgeable, but there are a lot of other deployments out there that don't always have as much experience as you guys do, and it would be very beneficial to be sharing knowledge like that with other hospitals that have got similar challenges. It's whether it's with us or not, it doesn't even matter. But we hear so many pain points, and we're sharing knowledge is key on that. Yeah. So, guys, I really just wanted to thank all of you. Don, thank you as always. It's been great to have you. Larry, it's been great to have you, and sorry for teasing you earlier. I actually I had my hat I pulled out for you. I prepared for the day. If we had Scott together, he was actually a sailor, so he was.
Oh man,
that we could have both used it. That was very, very easy. Pauline, thanks again as always. It's been great to have you moderate this session. Chris, if you don't mind just showing this slide is, we just want to mention that you've got basically SAP Insider next week, and there's a great session from Ken Coleman from Red Cross. He's also super knowledgeable, in particular when it comes to universes, and he's going to have a session, during the during Insider. So that's going to be part of the deck, and then we'll put a link on LinkedIn. The recording will be available on YouTube. Thanks to all the people that have joined today. Again, we've had about 1,000 people in total registrants, which is really phenomenal. So we've reached so many people, brought a lot of knowledge. Thanks a lot to all the partners that we had today. We had CB on Data, we had Productivity, we had Infosol. Patrick Sims also was great. As always, it was good to tease him for St. Patrick's Day. That was also a nice one, a very easy one, I have to say. Guys, happy St. Patrick's Day. And that's all, folks. I hope all of you acquired a lot of valuable knowledge today. Be good and stay cool. Remember, you can do more with Business Objects with 360 Suite. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Have an awesome day.
Indeed. Everybody has a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno. Thanks, Pauline.
All right.
Thanks all.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.